Welcome to Florida Gators Live 31. And man, oh man, did we have a stacked weekend of official visits here coming down to the swamp. And not only that, we did get a commitment from it, but some sadder news. We talked about it a bit throughout the season. The Florida baseball team unfortunately did get eliminated earlier today, lost to ECU, just Pierce Capola, and then Billy Barlow just couldn't get it done in the early innings. And it was too much of a comeback to mount. And they're not able to get it done.
Yeah, I mean, they just kind of ran out of magic. Like all the pitchers really outside of Aiden King just kind of picked the worst time to not be able to throw strikes. And then just with all the injuries and guys playing out of position on defense, there's a lot of errors, a lot of sloppy play this weekend. Bats didn't really wake up. Just nothing really going for it. All the injuries and stuff kind of just finally caught up to him. So, I mean, it ended up being a fun season. It was a fun turnaround. Good to make the tournament, but pretty poor showing in Conway this weekend.
And not only that, the women's softball team also got eliminated in 2 games in Omaha. It couldn't get anything going against Texas. And then the Tennessee game just got blown out, I'm pretty sure, as well. So it's unfortunate that both the baseball and softball team end up failing. But, you go next year. At least we got a commitment here in football. Got that championship in basketball. Hey, I'd rather get a championship in basketball than the other sports just do good, make it to Omaha, and probably not win the title. But we got that. And we got DJ Lagway, so we got that. But I think what we need to start off opening the show with, the commitment. Janari Carr, 4-star interior offensive lineman out of IMG Academy, originally from Ocala, Florida. Hey, the last offensive lineman we got from Ocala, Florida, ended up being a pretty good player for us in Jake Slaughter. So I think there's some excitement to have here with Janari Carr. 6'4", 336 pounds. I was watching a little bit of his tape here. He moves really well. He has a lot of quickness, played a lot of tackle for left tackle specifically for IMG Academy. I don't know how much of that playing tackle would translate. He's going to be a guard here. So I don't know if there's any swing ability between guard and tackle, but he has the quickness and the speed to line up at tackle in probably desperate situations there. I think you look at this 437 composite ranking. I think that's a bit low. He had a really good rivals camp in Miami a month or so ago. Someone I could see jumping up the rankings a little bit. I think this is a really good commitment for the Gators to land.
Yeah, so like you said, 4-star on Rivals, I believe. 247 and On 3 have him as a 3 in their industry composites, but 437. So that's kind of on the fringe of being a low 4-star. But I think when you look at the offers here, the teams that were competing for him, I mean, Tennessee, Alabama, a couple of those that are in the mix there, some other SEC schools. So clearly a guy who was drawing some interest. Like you said, mostly played tackle in high school. Assuming I think he pretty clearly projects as a guard in college. Looking at his film, I think the athleticism definitely stood out to me, like you said. I think I was a little bit more impressed with his run blocking reps than his pass blocking reps on film that I saw. Though some nice pass blocking reps, don't get me wrong, but I think what I saw from his run blocking was pretty good power there. I think kind of raw. I think some footwork and hand movement stuff could probably be a little bit better. But I mean, ultimately, I think you've got a guy that probably won't play in 2026, but I think has the tools to potentially develop into an SEC starter someday. So I think a solid pickup there. Kind of getting a few guys like this as we try to get steam, kind of still waiting on a really big name to pop. But I think that could change.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of momentum right now on the recruiting trail. Some other names that we're kind of waiting for. But I mean, you mentioned it, Carr, some good offers, Tennessee and Alabama specifically. Tennessee was a team that had some momentum with him. This wasn't some gimme battle. I think it was, but it also wasn't. Because Tennessee, they had a crystal ball in from Chad. What's his name for On 3? Chad
Simmons.
Chad right? Simmons, yes. Chad Simmons had put a projection in for him to go to Tennessee. Now, I was never really too worried, but those other schools did want him Tennessee, like maybe if they had a really fantastic visit, which I don't think they're going to get now that Carr is committed, he could have ended up going to Tennessee or Bama, put some pressure, but we did end up landing him. I think you mentioned it, pretty high upside, maybe not fully developed there. I think someone that could really work well under the Rob Sale tutelage. I don't know if you saw it. Rob Sale tweeted, and he just tweeted Osiris Torrance and Jake Slaughter. They're bricks. So they got the All-American thing right there. That was a pretty elite tweet from the coach there. But I mean, yeah, you're getting another kid from IMG Academy. Like, you're not recruiting IMG at an elite level. I don't think IMG is as stacked as it used to be anymore.
I don't think so either. No.
Like, it's kind of fallen a little bit off, but still, there's still really good recruits out of IMG and building more and more of a connection there. Maybe this could help you try to land Jake Krull, the edge rusher, although he does have an O-lineman that's committed to Oklahoma that he's good friends with. So it's going to be real interesting what happens there. But, I mean, I think he's someone that could definitely finish in that 4-star range. Interior offensive linemen usually are ranked a bit lower. You know, less of an upside compared to tackles. I mean, just look at the NFL and what tackles make compared to guards and centers make. So it's just naturally going to happen.
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, I think, I think that's a good point you made about, getting IMG guys. Like, obviously, yeah, I don't think it quite is the talent farm that it used to be, but still, like you said, good players there. Nice to make inroads. We'll say, I think he's a little bit different than some other other IMG guys that you're recruiting. Because a lot of them are like from all over the place. I think correct me if I'm wrong, but he's an Ocala kid, right? Originally from
yes, yeah, I said that earlier.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I missed that. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, kind of a guy that Florida already had like some, I'm sure some ties with, some, geographic ties with, staying pretty close to home for him, but still nice to see. And just nice to see that the recruiting class get some momentum. There was a lot of talk about the slow start, and I don't think either of us were all too concerned about that, just because this is the time when it really starts heating up. Like, guys aren't going to commit en masse before they're taking their official visits and stuff like that. But nice to see them, add another commitment. And just nice to see these recruiting weekends turn into guys committing coming off those visits.
Yeah, out of Ocala, just like Jake Slaughter was, who our last Ocala commit or recruit was. He had other commits, I believe. Or maybe in that same 2019 recruiting class, there were a couple of kids out of Vanguard in Ocala that end up going to like LSU and Jacksonville State, I believe, interestingly enough. So, yeah, I really like the commitment. Second. Okay. And I think it's going to end up working out pretty well for us. I think he's someone we could really develop. And I feel like we're getting to a point, especially with guards, where you can trust Rob Sale and this Jonathan DeCoster development here. And projected top 5 offensive line by PFF just the other day. So develop some really good players. And I'm excited to see who ends up popping next. And it's probably going to be a pretty large offensive line class. So this is only a first of many to come.
Yeah, which I'm excited to see, because I think we both have said, like, we'd like to see more higher end recruiting along the offensive line, like going and getting some top notch prospects. Because I think it's pretty hard to be critical of the development that these guys have done here. They're really getting the most out of these guys, developing them into, very capable potential all SEC caliber players and NFL draft prospects. You just would like to see them get, a few guys that maybe don't require as much development there. But I think opportunity to do that here, an opportunity for some early playing time with, what Florida's set to lose off the offensive line going into 2026, I should say.
Yeah, you're going to lose Damian George after this season. Now, Kinjaya Harris and Bryce Levette will probably still be here, although Levette maybe starting at tackle again, or we'll see what happens.
Slaughter gone. Yeah.
Yeah, Slaughter gone at center, which maybe Carr could compete for that center job. I don't know. We'll talk about that later in the show, actually, about the offensive line. But, yeah, I think he could get some playing time decently early on, but definitely not his first year here. But you never see that with our recruits.
Yeah, pretty rare.
Move on from that. I'd like to tell you guys about the new Voice of College Football website. You can go check it out at vocfb.com. I will post the link in the chats. Let me get that right here. Okay. Not send. Oh, there it is. Okay. You can go check that out. Brooks White wrote an article, about the two freshmen or sophomores now that ended up being on the cover. Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Williams on the main cover of the game. You also have DJ Lagway, who was on the deluxe edition cover. So you can go read this read this article, bunch of other ones on the website as well. Go check it out. Also has all of the times of each show on that specific day. Really convenient, really modern. It's great to use. I'd recommend it. You can go check it out. I'd also like to make sure to tell everybody to comment on the stream. If you're watching this after, still comment. We'll post all the videos that we do. It really helps us out. You can also become a member here at the Voice of College Football Florida for $2.99 a month. Other tiers, you don't need to do more than that, but it would really appreciate it and help us out a bunch. So thank you. But now we would like to welcome on a special guest from the LSU site. I'm not sure how to pronounce your last name, Grant. How is that pronounced?
It's Satray. Sorry, it's a really Louisiana last name. But it's Satray, like the season.
Got it.
Satray. Okay, that right. How have you been, Grant?
I've been doing pretty good. Just keeping up what's going on with college baseball. There's regionals going on, and of course LSU plays later tonight at 8 Central Time. Of course, 9 Eastern Time. They will be playing Arkansas Little Rock, so they should win that one. So right now I'm just waiting on seeing who will LSU play in the Super Regional. As of right now, it's between Kentucky and West Virginia. So, but regardless, I think LSU is going to win tonight, and then they're just going to prepare for Super Regionals.
I mean, hey, with all the upsets that are happening in this year, Vanderbilt, they got upset by Wright State and are eliminated already. I know Bama was, Georgia by Oklahoma State on a walk-off.
Yeah, I saw that. That was crazy.
Hey, it makes us happy as Florida fans over here, but I know LSU is a good team. Unfortunately, we also got upset today and eliminated by East Carolina, but bit of a phantom weird season for us, getting hot and then just getting cold come the tournament, which is uncommon for Sully, it feels. But
I would say no shade toward LSU, but you guys had one of the easiest regional draws I've seen LSU's a great team, but they just handed it to y'all.
Right. I think what really helped out too is that because when they do the regionals, you want to make sure most of the teams are kind of in a general area where the host at is. Yeah. Just happens so that the fact that we were able to get Dallas Baptist, Rhode Island, Arkansas Little Rock, and Dallas Baptist is a really good program. I'm actually shocked that they got knocked out as early as they did. They actually lost against Arkansas Little Rock, which I don't think anybody saw that coming. So they've been limited. So, but yeah, when they released the regionals, I was like, oh my god, this is actually that's actually a dream. I wasn't going in there. Okay, this is really easy because no regional is easy, right? These teams have made the postseason for a reason. Especially Dallas Baptist, 11 straight postseason appearances, 1 of 5 teams to do so, including LSU and Florida. So they've been on a hell of a run. But it's a lot better than having a regional with Oregon State like LSU did 2 years ago, and that was kind of scary at first. But then the pitching came around, and then of course you won that championship around against Florida.
Yeah.
Remember it well, unfortunately.
Yeah. Oh, that game one, who was it that made that catch? That would have won the game for Florida.
That was Pearson. Josh Pearson. Yeah.
That was a great catch by him. I was at a friend's house. I remember that, and I was so upset watching that. It was, oh man. But going on from baseball here, going to football. Florida LSU, it's kind of become an interesting little rivalry game between the two teams. Not necessarily because the two programs have a long history of hating each other, but because over the past 20 years, they've had some of the best games of any series in all of college football. Go look at this past year, get a great game where Florida's defensive line just takes over and allows us to pull an upset. And it's really where people see us rising from the grave, or Billy Napier rising from the grave. And then last year, Jaden Daniels goes for 600 yards or whatever it was. And a game that Florida led in the third quarter, I feel like it's easily forgotten that Daniels and Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas just take over. similar, but the year before that, where Jaden Daniels goes crazy. And you go back so far, 2020 with the Marco Wilson shoe toss. I mean, just great games going back, and it's kind of become a rivalry. You have two fan bases that die for college football. So when this happens, it's just bound to become a rivalry of sorts. And you had the SEC East and the SEC West, and we still played each other every single year, which I think most Gator fans would have rather played Auburn. That's more of a traditional rivalry than what LSU was. But I think when you looking back, probably was a good thing they picked LSU based on the games we had.
Yeah, and I don't say this. I don't think it is kind of it is a rivalry, right? There is there's a deep hatred between both the schools. I mean, look, in the 90s, I mean, and it really goes back since before then, even when Spurrier got there, right? Like Spurrier, it's a well-known thing that Spurrier wanted the LSU job. And so that's why whenever he played LSU, when he's in Florida, he wanted to murder LSU. And he did so. LSU only won one time against Florida when Spurrier was the head coach. And actually, when Spurrier left Florida to go to the Washington, well, at the time, the Redskins, LSU fans celebrated like how LSU fans celebrated when Saban retired, right? He kicked LSU's ass every single year. And then it kind of flipped when, of course, Ron Zook took over Florida. And then we actually had Nick Saban. And then from then on, LSU actually had a winning, well, I would say winning record against Florida. But, then LSU and Florida were both very good at the same time. Florida had Tim Tebow. LSU was kind of going on the run in the mid-2000s. And then, of course, and then in the 2010s, of course, LSU, really took over the rivalry. Before Florida beat LSU last year, I believe LSU won, 6 of, the last 7 meetings or something. It was almost like LSU became – what Florida was to LSU in the 90s is what LSU became to Florida in the 2010s. I mean, it was kind of a flip, but last year kind of showed that, okay, yeah, Florida might be back. And then the week after, they beat Ole Miss. So, hopefully that rivalry kind of picks up. It's always been a rivalry, but I hope it kind of picks up the steam to how it was in the mid to late 2000s where both the games were close, both teams were national powerhouses. Because now it's a very important game for LSU, right? It's the first SEC game of the year, and it should be a top 25 matchup. But it's extremely important for Florida because Billy Napier is technically still sort of on a hot seat. Same thing with Brian Kelly, but I think Napier even more so because Florida, they have to build off of last year, right? I mean, it was the first time you had a winning season 2 or 3 years, finished with 8-5 record, but you have to build off that to show, hey, we're among the elite with the SEC. But, the same thing goes with Brian Kelly, but I think Billy Napier on a higher scale because of how hot the seat has been for him his entire time in Florida.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Tyler.
Sorry, I'd like to ask you guys both a question here. What is your favorite moment from the Florida LSU rivalry over the years? I think that's pretty fun to look at. There's been a lot of fun moments.
A lot of them gone to LSU. So
I have a pretty easy one for me. It's when Florida won the game in 2018, the first year with Joe Burrow. LSU was, I believe, a top 10 team, top 15.
They were number 5.
They were okay. I couldn't remember if they were even top 5. Okay, so they were number 5. Yeah, I was at that game as a student. That was my sophomore year, and my freshman year was 2017. So rough season, not a lot of fun. Other than the Tennessee Hail Mary, not a lot of fun moments from home games that year. So that was kind of the first time I experienced the swamp at its full potential as a student, with a big top 5 win, and that was a lot of fun.
And for you, Grant? Oh, do we lose him?
I think he's frozen.
Yep. All right. I'll say my favorite. It's tough because over the course of when I've watched, we've lost a couple of these games. Might just go with from last year when we hit that when Jaden Ball hit that 55-yard touchdown run. I mean, that was very electric. I was also thinking that 2018 when Burrow threw his first 2 career interceptions with Brad Stewart, who was from Louisiana, and LSU wouldn't take. I believe the other one was who was you got the other interception? Was it Donovan Steiner? Maybe.
That sounds right, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, but I mean, I'll go. There's also 2016, I believe it was, when we had the 4th and goal stop on the one.
Yeah.
Was it Darius Geis?
Yeah, it was there was that, and then there was also it was the Darius Geis run, and then there was also the play where I can't remember who off the top of my head, but it was when
Joseph.
Was it Voshon Joseph who shoved Danny Etling out of bounds at the half-yard line? Okay, yeah, that was great.
Yep. We'll see when we can get Graham back on, but I mean, just looking back over the years, there's been some fantastic moments. I mean, go back to 2007 when there were LSU fans got a hold of Tim Tebow's phone number.
Yeah.
And then he scores a touchdown and hits them with the celebration, the call me celebration and everything. LSU obviously ended up winning that game, but that was a fun moment in the Florida LSU series. And then there's some sad ones on our history with the shoe throw in particular.
Yeah.
When we don't really
throws.
Sorry.
You're gone. I was just saying shoe throw was tough. 2019 was tough. Like there were a couple there were a couple tough ones in there.
Yep. Message, okay. But yeah, I mean 2021 where who was it? Who was the running back for LSU that ended up going for
Ty Davis Price. Oh my god.
Tyrion Davis Price, right?
Yeah, like he went by Ty, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
Dude, that was awful. It went for there was the worst rushing offense in the SEC, and it went for 300 yards on Todd Grantham's defense.
Yeah,
we're talking about the game Ty Davis Price. Yeah.
Those 2020-21 games were probably my favorite because that was my freshman year. Like I'm the same as you, Tom. I went to LSU a little bit later, but that was technically my freshman year, and it was during COVID. And of course, that was by far the worst season LSU's had since the late '90s. And we're in the game. I was I watched the game. I was all right, at this point, I'm just torture watching, right? I'm just waiting for the torture to happen. All of a sudden, LSU gets to leave. What is going on here? And then, of course, the infamous shoe throw. And I remember that they stopped us. Florida stopped LSU on third down, and all of a sudden there's a flag. I'm like, why is there a flag? And I was sports conduct, he threw the shoe across the field. I'm like, wait, I remember somebody did this, but I didn't know that he actually threw a shoe. And of course, they went down the field, kick a 50-yard field goal in the fog. And then, Florida came back, tried to do the same thing, and they missed it. But I think 2021 was kind of the same thing where LSU, everyone, it was 11 o'clock game. No one was excited for it. It was right after we got our butts kicked by Kentucky, of all teams. Well, although Kentucky didn't have a good year that year. But it was still Kentucky, right? And you kind of knew, okay, Coach O's gone this last season. Our offensive line can't block. 86-year-old grandma, our defense can't stop anybody. And then all of a sudden, Ty Davis Price runs for nearly 300 yards, and every single time they scored a touchdown, we were so really we had won the national championship because we were we could not believe it. And then less than 24 hours later, the news breaks that Coach O got fired, and then that led to a 2 to 3 month process of this guy's been our head coach, and this guy's been head coach, and this guy's been head coach. We all thought Lincoln Riley was the head coach, and then all of a sudden we got Brian Kelly, which, by the way, I mean, it was a great hire too. I still think it's a great hire, but the issue with Brian Kelly has been, I think this has been well documented, is that his inability to win the games that matter. He does a great job of winning games. He's the winningest active head coach in college football, but when it comes to winning the games you need to win, he hasn't been really great.
All right.
They've had some tough losses, thinking back to the season openers, the FSU game, the blocked extra point game a couple years back, obviously the USC game last year. Definitely just it's had a lot of teams that it feels like are just a play or two away. It's kind of hard to believe he hasn't made a playoff appearance there. And and you got I kind of feel like that's got to be coming this year. If it's not a playoff team this year, that's kind of a problem. I mean, I don't think he's gonna get fired just because of where that buyout's sitting at. But he's underachieving while still being successful.
Yeah, and it's weird to say. And I think the perfect example of that was 2023 year. You had Jane Daniels, and that's before we knew. Jane Daniels, a Heisman Trophy winner. Like we had Jane Daniels coming back. We had most of our receivers coming back. Our whole offensive line was coming back. Everyone's coming back on offense. And then the defense had some players as well. Harold Perkins coming back after a tremendous freshman season. And then we all thought we were going to make the playoff. But then we found out very quickly as Florida State that the defense wasn't very good. And then it just got worse and worse and worse. And that led to the whole defense staff getting fired. And ironically, we hired Blake Baker as the defense coordinator and Corey Raymond as a cornerbacks coach. Those guys were already on the staff when Brian Kelly took over. So it was almost like, oh, my bad. Let me bring you guys back moment. And the defense did improve last year. And they had their issues, but I think a lot of their issues was because of the lack of talent. Especially in our safety positions, right? You had Sage Ryan and Major Burns. If you talk to any LSU fan, you mentioned those two names, are like, we don't want to talk about that. It's like World War II flashbacks for them. But they've done a great job of, retooling the defense, getting more talent. I mean, they had the number one transfer portal class in the country, and most of that was spent on, the defensive line, especially on the edges, and then also the secondary. I really like where the secondary is headed. And I think the LSU has a chance to be a playoff team, but, it starts with Clemson. They have to beat Clemson. Because yes, the SEC may not look as strong next year, it's just kind of like what ifs going around the SEC at this moment. But the SEC is very tough. I mean, it is the toughest league in the country. And look, I know last year was a down year for the SEC, but it's still overall a tough league. Everyone wants to beat each other. Everyone hates each other. LSU hates Florida. LSU hates Alabama. Alabama hates Auburn. And they hate Georgia. And Georgia hates Florida. Tennessee. Everyone wants to beat each other. So when you add that factor, it's just a very tough conference to play. And there's no guarantee that LSU is going to lose. Only LSU is going to win out, right? Because the SEC is just so tough. Especially when LSU's going to Oxford, and they're going to Tuscaloosa, and they're going to Norman. I think Oklahoma could be a little bit better than they were last year, right? And then we have Florida coming to Baton Rouge. We have South Carolina coming to Baton Rouge. And both those teams, I think, could be really good this year if everything works out, because they have a lot of guys coming back. So there's going to be a lot of tough games for LSU. You can even make a case that Vanderbilt, this could be a tough game, which is, I never would think that. But, when you have a guy like Diego Pavia coming back, who's a playmaker, you have to factor that in. Every game is going to be tough for LSU. But if you want it, but your playoff chances increase when you beat a team like Clemson on the road. And a perfect example of that is 2019 LSU, when they went to Texas, beat Texas, was the top 10 team at the time. And the rest of the way, I think we all know what happened then.
Yeah, that Clemson series? Is that a hole and home?
Yes. So we play Clemson and Clemson this year, and then Clemson will be coming to LSU next season, 2026.
Next season, okay. The battle for Death Valley, I guess.
Yeah.
That's gonna be some debates.
Sorry, I was just saying, I think that Clemson LSU game is that's the one I have circled in week 1. That even more so than Ohio State, Texas. I think, honestly, that's the game I'm just so fascinated by, because I'm very high on Clemson, but I'm also pretty high on LSU. And I think especially for LSU, it just seems like you said, the stakes are so high there, because it's it could go in so many different directions. If LSU wins that game, I think you're going to start seeing the hype kind of take off like a rocket ship if they go on the road and win that game against Clemson in week 1. And then at the same time, if you don't, all of a sudden you've got Florida coming in week 3, and you're trying to avoid falling to 1 and 2. That's almost the season right there in week 3 already, if you don't win that first game. So I think that's why that first game is just so fascinating to me, because it's two teams and especially LSU, because I'll give them credit. I think they've changed the strategy after Brian Kelly was saying last year, we don't really want to focus on the portal. We want to be a high school recruiting built team. They kind of changed their tack there a little bit. And, obviously, like you said, the number 1 portal class in the country this offseason, really retooled the receiver room, the secondary. So I think they're just a team I'm really fascinated by, because I'm high on them, but there's so many new pieces that it's really hard to say it until we actually see it out on the field.
and I was going to say this too. I mean, I looked at this because I wrote down the schedule. But in their first 6 games, you have at Clemson, Florida, and that's August 30th, Florida on September 13th, Ole Miss on the 27th of September. Then you have the bye week, and then you turn around and you welcome in South Carolina. So, I mean, 4 of the 6 games are going to be primetime games for the most part. Just due to if you're going off of right now, those are all primetime games. And I saw a comment where it says LSU's going to lose 2 of their first 3 games, and that's a possibility, right? But I think that also determines whether or not they beat Clemson, right? If LSU beats Clemson, it will be very hard for me to see LSU losing more than 2 games, just because that is a huge victory. And Clemson's supposed to be very good this year. Like, they returning a lot of players. They're going to almost look like vintage Clemson too. But yeah, it's going to be tough. And also, like you said, Tyler, about the Tyler at the bottom about how they were told. Yeah, I mean, and look, and that's because, and ironically, that's because of the tactics they took of building up high school recruiting. They used the money they used for the transfer portal was used on Bryce Underwood, but with the second Bryce Underwood went to Michigan, they were like, okay, we're just use this money for the transfer portal, and that's exactly what they did. And then also they started promoting their NIL collective a lot more. And I think that's something they promoted it, but they didn't say, hey, you could be old Mo Joe and you could donate $10 monthly to the Bayou Collective today. And a lot of people didn't know that. People thought it's just a booster thing. So I think LSU's not only has figured out the whole NIL thing, but I think when that's just recruiting and we're balancing high school recruiting and the transfer portal recruiting, but they've also done a better job of organizing their NIL collective, which has been the biggest problem, in my opinion, when it comes to NIL for LSU. It's not the fact that I don't think LSU didn't have the money. It's the fact that, how are we going to get the money? Where are we getting money? Like, how can fans chime in as well? I think that has been the biggest issue for LSU.
Yeah, they're not alone in that either. I think that's been an adjustment a lot of athletic departments have had to make. I think even ones like Georgia, Alabama, like I think even schools like that have kind of had that issue as we make this transition. And it's only going to get even more complicated when we get into rev sharing here in probably the next couple months.
Yeah, so I have a couple questions here about your team this year. So I think there are 2 players that will be the key to LSU's championship success. And I say championship success because I think you guys have a good football team. I just worry, does LSU have like the high-end talent to win a lot of big games? As you mentioned, you play Clemson, you play Florida, you play Alabama, you play South Carolina, you play Texas A&M. Is there any point you're going to have the best player? Because 1 or 2 of those games, you're going to need that elite player to take over. And the 2 players on both sides I'm looking at. Defense, pretty easy. It's Harold Perkins. I mean, you go back to his freshman season, he won you games. Now, since then, you haven't really used him right. He's had some injuries. He hasn't really gelled well. How do you think he will impact your team this year?
Actually, I don't think he's the biggest playmaker for LSU on the defensive side of the ball. It's Whit Weeks. And Harold, and Whit Weeks, the second Harold Perkins went down, we really got to see the true Whit Weeks. And look, Whit Weeks played a good bit his freshman year. We saw some flashes. But last year, my God, he looked it's almost like Harold Perkins looked like his freshman year, but I think he looked more like a true linebacker guy. He flew around and made tackles behind the line of scrimmage, at the line of scrimmage, in open space. I mean, he made all the plays. And there's a lot of games this year where he had 10 tackles, 12 tackles, but he was consistent throughout the whole year. You had to watch number 40, and it was not hard to miss. I think Harold Perkins, it's not so much that they haven't found a way to use him. He's still a very talented player. The issue has been, his freshman year, he looked dominant because the only thing LSU asked him to do, hey, we want you to rush off the edge of the ball. Just find ball, see ball, find ball, make the play. But now, sophomore year, he had a really good year. And then, he still had a really good year, even though a lot of people thought he had a down year. He actually did. He actually had a great year. It's just he went down. His numbers went down in terms of sack totals. And then last year he got hurt. But I think the issue with Taylor Perkins is that he is an outside linebacker that is too small to play outside linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you put him at inside backer, he doesn't have the necessary instincts to make the play. And that's something that Whit Weeks has. Whit Weeks has both those capabilities. He can play on the inside and on the outside, and he has great instincts. Harold Perkins needs to improve on his instincts. If he wants to be a linebacker. So right now, they moved him to star, which I think is a great landing spot because he's actually really good in pass coverage. He was actually one of the highest rated pass coverage linebackers in the country, and according to PFF, especially his sophomore season. So I think that'll be a great area where he can kind of build up, his resume and also show off his versatility because he can not only be in pass coverage, but we can also rush him off the edge. And also we have better players at the star position. We have guys, safeties who can play. It's almost more of a safety for LSU, but because of his skill set, he's almost like a hybrid. Like you don't know where to put him, but because he's so great in pass coverage and he can still be an effective run stopper, which is something you need to have as a star. I think you'd be great there. But I also want to mention too that their defense, their edge rushers, I mean, they dominated the spring game. It was like they go 5-6 deep. They have a lot of experienced guys. I mean, they took one of you guys, Jack Pyburn. He looked awesome in the spring game. Patrick Payne from Florida State, we brought him in. And then on top of that, you have some younger guys who have played who got the good snaps in the spring game. Gabe Relaford, Kalach Cobbins. It's not even just the experienced guys. Even the guys who are the underclassmen are going to step up in a big way for LSU. And that's something you need at an elite college football program. If you want to be an elite college football program, you have to have depth, especially at the defensive line position. And it's not even just the defensive ends, it's also the interior as well. They're bringing back a lot of depth on the interior, which is something they really haven't had in a little while.
Yeah, I feel that.
I say my biggest question kind of for you looking at this LSU team, because I really like a lot of what they've done on offense. Like I like Garrett Nussmeier. I think he has a really high ceiling and I think will play a lot even better this year than he did last year. I think the receiving core is good. I guess my question is, what's the offensive line looking like? Because you lose 4 or 5 starters, sort of only returning DJ Chester, who was, it sounds offensive to say the weak link. I mean, he was the weak link on what was a very talented offensive line. So, do you think that with all those losses, because I think that's like the limiting factor here, you've got all those pieces, but does LSU have the offensive line to really maximize them?
So what LSU's been doing, I'm not sure how much you guys have been following with the LSU transfer portal. I mean, you guys got 4 to deal with, but LSU brought in Braylon Moore, who was the starting center for Virginia Tech the last 2 years. And they also brought in Josh Thompson, who was a offensive tackle from Northwestern. They both started over 30 games. Of course, Braylon Moore started 30-plus games in the ACC, and then Josh Thompson started 30-plus games in the Big Ten, and that's the second best conference. Well, now the Big Ten and the SEC are the 2 best conferences. I'm not going to say 1 or 2 because I think there's just 2 of the best, right? They just are. But you bring in those 2 guys who are experienced. They weren't starting during the spring, but they're going to be starting in the fall, right? They're going to be starting game 1 because those 2 guys are experienced. And then I think what's going to happen is that I think they're going to move DJ Chester to guard, which I think he probably be a little more natural. DJ Chester had to play center due to necessity, and he did a good job of playing cleanup the year before as a true freshman, of course. And we were also able to use a redshirt on him because he only played in 4 games. But I think he did okay as a redshirt freshman. But there were some games where like he's kind of the weak link. And really down the stretch for LSU, they played a lot of underclassmen. So we started Paul Mubenga at left guard, and he got bullied against Florida's defensive line, and it was glaring. It was glaring. And then over the last 3 games, he improved each and every single game, and he's going to be the starting left guard for LSU. And then left tackle, they have Tyree Adams. Tyree Adams is somebody that this coaching staff has loved. Just to step on campus. For example, whenever Will Campbell or Emory Jones had to leave for a play because their helmet came off or whatever, he would often come in for that. And he actually started the bowl game against Baylor when Will Campbell opted out of the bowl game because obviously he was a top 5 pick, and he had every right to do so. But Tyree Adams played well. And at right tackle right now, I mean, it's going to be – I think so. If you had to do the starting offensive line right now, I think left tackle is Tyree Adams, left guard is Paul Mabenga, center is Braylon Moore, right guard is DJ Chester, and then right tackle will be Josh Thompson. If I had to do an offensive line starting offensive line right now, I think those would be your 5 guys.
Mm-hmm. I got George asking, do you think it would be too much to ask to beat Clemson's ass the first game of the year?
I don't know. Ask Brian Kelly. I think if that Clemson game, I think it's going to come down to coaching, like who has the better coaching staff. Because I think LSU has they have a great coaching staff right now. I really like what they have. The issue is offensive play calling, right? Joe Sloan, our coordinator, has gotten a lot of flack for some of his offensive play calling last year. Actually, Brian Kelly took over some of the play calling last year down the stretch, especially in the Florida game. It was well known that Brian Kelly did call some of the offensive plays during that game. But they also brought in what's his name? I think his name is Alex Collins. He was offensive coordinator at Florida State last year. But they brought him in as the run game coordinator, and I think that would help out LSU tremendously. Alex Atkins, yes. Mm-hmm. It'll help him out tremendously because that was an area they struggled with running the ball. Outside of Caden Durham, they really didn't have a running game, and the reason why they had a little bit of a running game with Caden Durham is because Caden Durham is talented back. And by the way, I think he's going to have a huge year this year. I just think because he now knows the offense, and I think now he's going to get more of the carries because he's going to be, quote unquote, I guess you could say the veteran back of the running back room. But I think bringing in Alex Atkins to kind of help out with offensive play calling, especially with the running game, will help out LSU tremendously. Because really, throughout Brian Kelly's tenure at LSU, the run game really was Jane Daniels. Jane Daniels really hid some of the issues that LSU had in the running game. And I think with him, and Logan Dixon have a good year for LSU when he was healthy. But outside of that, you really haven't had a run game at LSU. I think with Alex Atkins coming in to help with the run game, and I think Joe Sloan, with a year under his belt, I think he would be a better play caller. But Clemson has one of the better defensive play callers in Tom Allen, who took over as the defensive coordinator at Clemson. So I think that's the issue. I think that's really why I think Clemson might win that game is because of Tom Allen, right? That hire was tremendous, especially with the talent that they have. And so I think that really this game will come down to coaching, but also how Brian Kelly prepares this team, right? Because I think people are like, well, Brian Kelly did prepare his team for USC last year. I mean, that's why they're winning. It's like, yeah, but preparing for a team is not from the beginning. It's from the beginning to the end. How will you prepare this team from the start of the game to the end? I think that's something that Brian Kelly has had an issue with from the beginning of his career, right? Going back to Nerdy, going back to Cincinnati, I think Brian Kelly has to do a better job of preparing his team from the start to the final whistle. I think if he can prepare his team for that against Clemson in the other Death Valley, as we like to call it down here in Baton Rouge, I think LSU has a great chance of winning. But right now, I think Clemson may have the coaching edge.
Yeah, so Tyler talked about your offensive line. I also have a worry about your offensive line, as anyone would, and the run game not necessarily there consistently last year. My biggest question mark, if I think for LSU to be a championship contender, I think Garrett Nussmeier has to be that best quarterback in the country, Heisman winner. Because if Nuss is just a good, above-average quarterback, I don't think you guys are going to be good enough on offense to be able to win all those games you guys have to play and make the playoff run and do all of that. Like, I think Florida has a QB in DJ Lagway who could be a Heisman contender this season. And if he isn't, then Florida's not going to be as good. And I think it's a pretty similar situation to LSU and Garrett Nussmeier.
Right. I think both those situations come down to coaching, right? I think for DJ Lagway's sake, Billy Napier has yet to prove that he can develop a quarterback, right? You had a very talented quarterback in Anthony Richardson. It never really worked out. UL, he didn't really have a quarter. That was really more on the run game because Lafayette had a fantastic running game, and I think that's what led. It wasn't the quarterback play; it was the running game. They also had a great offensive line too. So I really think it comes down to the coach how they develop DJ Lagway long term. But for LSU, it's not so much of how much you develop Garrett Nussbaum. I think Garrett Nussbaum has already had a lot of development. And I'm not saying he still have room to grow. Everyone still has room to grow. But he's a fifth-year quarterback. It's his fifth year being in the office, his fifth year being a part of the LSU program. He is a veteran, right? He is a true veteran. I don't have any worries about his development. I think the issue with Garrett Nussbaum is play calling, and then also how well can you develop the run game. Because that was, I think, part of the issue with Garrett Nussbaum last year is because it was so one-dimensional because you couldn't run the ball. And on top of that, you had someone of an inexperienced offensive play caller. That's what led to Garrett Nussbaum's struggles down the stretch. I think if LSU can build a run game and then also on top of that, find better play calls where you don't have to go deep every play. I think that's the problem. LSU kind of went deep a little bit too much. So you got to find short to intermediate to develop those long balls, but also a lot of those But the problem was with LSU throwing the deep ball last year, so they also didn't have deep threats, right? I think it's very well documented. I think we've all seen the John Boy video with what's his name, number 3, Chris Helen, yes, where Chris Helen was jumping too early and it went viral, and I'm like, oh god. So but he was also coming off an injury, right? He had an injury, and then Kyle Parker had an ACL tear. Kyle Parker was supposed to be that second deep threat for LSU, and he looked like he was going to have a good year, and then he tore his ACL, which sucks. And I think losing both those deep threats really hurt LSU. But that's why they retooled the receiver. They brought in more deep threats because Aaron Anderson, as fast as he is, he's not a deep threat, right? He's more of a slot possession type of receiver. But when you bring in Aaron Anderson, you bring in Barry Brown, right? And also LSU just really has a lot of receivers. I can't name them all, but I really like what I saw from the receiver room this season. Chris Elm, knock on wood, if he's healthy, can be a fantastic deep threat for LSU. His problem is, can he stay on the field, right? It's been a running joke that, Chris Elm's questionable. Oh, he's not going to play. Like it's become a meme at this point, like where if Chris Elm's questionable, he's not going to play. So if Chris Elm can stay in the field, really can the receivers, and Nick Anderson too, I'm really interested to see what he can do because during the spring he was kind of limited because he is also coming off of a ACL tear. So I really think that if the receivers could stay healthy, this could be a deadly group, especially when we have a very talented quarterback in Nussbaum, who a lot of people think not only is a Heisman candidate, but could be the number 1 quarterback taken in next year's draft. But I think, you really want to know how well this pass attack can be unless you get the run game going. You have to get the run game going if you're LSU. And really, national championships are won when you have a run game. I'm not saying you got to rush for 200 yards every game, but if you rush for 150 yards or more every single game, you have a great chance of winning a lot of football games.
Yeah, my worry more is with Nussmeier under pressure. You saw it against Florida. You saw it against Texas A&M. You saw it against Alabama. When teams pressured Nussmeier, he turned the ball over. He fumbled. Yeah. He threw interceptions. And that A&M game, it was LSU led at halftime, right?
Yes, they were lead by more than 2 touchdowns. Yes, yeah.
And then they get pressure on Garrett Nussmeier, get a couple picks, and game's over right there. Happened against Florida. Really, that the 7 sacks Florida got is what turned over that game. And now that you lose those 4 NFL offensive linemen, you guys obviously are gonna have plans to replenish those guys. You mentioned them earlier. The transfers you brought in, the experienced transfers you brought in. Are they going to be better? No, that's maybe they'll be better run blockers, and that helps get Caden Durham going more and more. But are they better pass blockers? I think is the question.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. LSU was an elite pass blocking team last year, right? And those issues where Florida was good getting pressure on Nussmeier is because, like I said, you were without just left guard that gave Garrett Dellinger. He went out with injury, so he had to put in Olu Benga, who has never started a game throughout his LSU career. Right? He was a redshirt freshman last year, and that's why Florida's able to get so much pressure on Garrett Nussmeier. But the issue with really what Garrett Nussmeier last year was because he, and I have a theory behind this, he didn't scramble as much as he should, right? That first interception he threw against Texas A&M, which ultimately led the rally for Texas A&M. If he just ran, if he just scrambled, he would have got 3 or 4 yards, and you had another down. It's going to be what? Second and short or third and short, whatever it was. But instead, you throw a pick to Texas A&M on your side of the field, and they brought in their backup quarterback, who really should have been the starter from the beginning. I even mentioned, said on one of my preview articles, hey, like don't be prepared if they bring this guy in. Like this guy started while this guy was hurt. Like don't be prepared if they bring him in. They brought him in and almost looked, yeah. Ironically, LSU just didn't. They act like they'd never seen this guy before. It's like, yo, he literally killed Florida by himself. Like, come on, like it was ridiculous. But going back to Desperate Struggle, it's almost like he didn't want to run because I felt like the coaches told him not to run because the quarterback situation wasn't necessarily great for LSU last year. You didn't have a back quarterback where you could trust. With Jaden Daniels, let's say Jaden went down with the injury, Garrett Nussmeier was the back, right? And Garrett Nussmeier was almost like the heir to the throne, per se, just given the fact that he's been with the program for 3 years up to that point, 2 or 3 years up to that point, and you already saw Garrett Nussmeier play. You saw Garrett Nussmeier ball out in the SEC championship game in the bowl game. So it was only a matter of time before, like, he's going to wait one more year and he was going to take the throne. But last year you had A.J. Swan, who was the quarterback at Vanderbilt for like a year, but he got benched because he wasn't very good. He comes in against the Oklahoma game, and if we kept him up for the entire game, LSU would have lost the game. So they had to get Nussmeier the juicy juice to get back in the game because it's ironically he had a hurt shoulder, comes back out and starts lining it up like Joe Burrow did against UCF. But I think Nussmeier can run. Right? I'm not saying he's not running like Jane Daniels, but he is mobile and he can scramble. So in the spring game he showed like, if I have to scramble, I'm going to scramble, right? Just get 3 or 4 yards and then not throw the interception. I think you're going to see that a lot more here. So I think LSU's in a much better situation in terms of his quarterback room. But yeah, I think it just has to be about protecting the ball. Nussmeier's biggest issue has just been protecting the ball because he's a gunslinger. I call Garrett Nussmeier Timu Brett Favre, not because he's bad, but because he has the same exact play style as Brett Favre. I'm not saying he's Brett Favre, but he has a very similar play style where he'll make a throw. It's like, oh my God, what a throw. And then the next play, like, oh my God, what are you doing? Like that's Garrett Nussmeier in a nutshell.
Yeah, I think another moment from last season of his that kind of got memory hold a little bit was the pick in the South Carolina game where they made a pretty bad call on that return, which, I mean, it would have cost them the game. Like LSU would have lost, in all likelihood, lost another game last year if that had been called probably the way it should have been. So
that was a good call. Like I understand it because I'm a traditionalist when it comes to football. I like those blindside blocks, but when the play is going down that way, you're trying to kill the quarterback when the play's 20 yards up the field. Like, what are you doing, Kyle? I mean, it's like if he just stood in front of him like this, like a penguin, it would have been a pick six. The game's over. Brian Kelly's on the hot seat. Like, and I was starting off the season wanting to do, but Kyle kind of just like, I'm going to be a bully and I'm going to like push him in the face. I'm like, dog, what are you doing? Like, you didn't have to do all that. You just stand in front of him. If you think he's going to make the play, which I don't think he would have, but you think in your mind he's going to make the play, just stand in front of him. I mean, it's not the 1990s anymore, man. Like you got to adjust. But but Kyle Conner's a great player, by the way, and he told us that game. But I mean, that if he just stood in front of him, game's over, and we're having a completely different discussion about LSU this year.
It's probably true.
All right, let's start kind of a little bit breaking down the matchup coming into this 2025 season. What are some things that you look at and you're like, okay, this is a clear advantage, or you think it should be an advantage for LSU? And what's another thing you look at and it's like, okay, that scares me?
I think the biggest advantage for LSU is the fact that you're in Death Valley. You're in Death Valley. Yeah. You have probably a better quarterback, because I think it's just in terms of experience and production. And then you also have a better head coach. When I think of three things when it comes to, I determine, okay, who's going to win this game? Quarterback, head coach, and environment. And I think LSU has advantage in all three of those. And that's not disrespect to Florida. I just think it's hard to beat LSU at night, right? Under Brian Kelly, LSU's only lost one time at Tiger Stadium at night, and that was against Alabama last year. And that's because, for some reason, Jalen Milroe because Michael Vick whenever he plays LSU. It's like what Jane Daniels was to you guys is what Jalen Milroe was to us, but an even worse scale because Jalen Milroe was not a good quarterback. Period. Jane Daniels was a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, the number 2 pick in the draft, and looks like he could be the face of the NFL if everything works out, right? Because he had an awesome rookie campaign. But it's just really hard to beat LSU at Death Valley. And you guys know this. I mean, you guys are Florida fans. I mean, you guys got a lot of games at night at Tiger Stadium. It's hard to beat LSU at Tiger Stadium. Oh, remember that time? That was 2016, wasn't it? That was
that was the last time. That was the last time, and it was also a day game. I'm trying to think. The last time Florida beat LSU at night in Death Valley was probably 2009.
2009, yeah. 2009.
I
mean, it's been it's going up that like it's been a really long time. I mean, Florida's only won one time, but because I remember they won in 2016, but other than that, that's the only time they've won in Death Valley. I mean, they won in Death Valley in 2009, and they won in Death Valley in 2016. That's about it. Even Florida has a losing record against LSU at Death Valley the last 15 years. It's an extremely hard place to play for anybody, right? I mean, even night or day. Brian Kelly's only lost twice at Tiger Stadium. He lost against Tennessee in 2022, and Tennessee looked like they had a 2019-esque season, and that was the week before they beat Bama, by the way. And that's how I knew they were going to beat Bama, because they dominated LSU that day. And then, of course, last year against Alabama. Those are only two times. So, I mean, if you look at, LSU probably plays, 7 home games per season. I mean, I would say, if his record was, 18-2, whatever that is, may be. At Tiger Stadium, so it's a really tough place to play. No matter who your head coach is, right? It really doesn't matter. I mean, it's historically been a very tough place to play, and you can make a case it is the toughest place to play. It just is. I mean, when, like I said, it never rains at Tiger Stadium. I mean, it's just something mythical about that stadium. It just is. I'm not saying that from an LSU fan perspective, or LSU journalist perspective. Even before I went to LSU, and I mean, you can talk to any fan around the country. There's something mythical about the place. There's not many stadiums around the country that have that mythical feeling about stadium. I think when I think of mythical feelings, I think about Jordan-Hare Stadium, about all the crazy stuff that's happened at that stadium. I think about the Big House. I think about even your stadium, the Swamp. I mean, there's very few stadiums where damn, this place, something's up with this place. I don't want to mess with it.
Yeah, I mean, I was there in 2019, and it was
me too.
For the Florida game. Oh, you were at that game too?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that was as good a home atmosphere as I've ever seen in college football. So, I mean, there's no doubt about that.
And I remember,
what do you?
Sorry, yeah. So, but I was gonna say, but in 2022, when Alabama played against LSU, the fog was coming in, so you just knew, all right, what's going on here? I don't like this feeling. And I'm an LSU fan. I was like, why is there fog in stadium? Of course, they ended up winning in overtime. But, it's just a mythical place. But you can go ahead, Tyler.
All right, so you got what you think you have an advantage of. Home field advantage. That's a clear advantage for you guys. QB, I think that's a pretty close debate there. And like a lot of people love Nussmeier. I'm not on the Nussmeier train as much. So that's a push, I guess you could say, according to some. And then coaching. I mean, yeah, Brian Kelly's been one of the most successful coaches over the past 15 years now in college football. And Billy Napier has only had one winning season in the SEC. So there's a big discrepancy there. But so what do you look at now and know is like a clear, like, okay, if we lose this game, it's probably because of that.
Offensive line. Again, I think if you're going off of right now, I'll take the offensive line because I have no idea what the offensive line is going to be. I do trust Brad Davis. I do trust his recruiters. They're awesome recruitment.
Mm-hmm.
He's been a great recruiter for LSU. Like, this is the first time in a while where LSU is just dominating recruiting trail for offensive linemen, right? And a lot of that is because there's better offensive linemen in Louisiana than it has in the past. Like, Louisiana has not been a place where offensive line just develop and then just pop out. Nope. Like, there's been a lot of offensive linemen that have been developed here in Louisiana, but it's not just offensive line, it's also quarterbacks too. That's something you really haven't seen from Louisiana in the past. But also his national recruiting has been awesome as well. But the issue is it's just hard to replace Emory Jones and Will Campbell, who have literally started every single game from the time they were freshmen. Like, Will Campbell started every single game but two. One was when he went to the hospital the day before the Tennessee game, and then of course the bowl game opt out last year. Emory Jones has literally started every single game since week 3 of the 2022 season, and that's when they played Mississippi State. So I mean, it's hard to replace two guys who started 30 plus games for you on the two ends. But not only that, you're replacing 4 of your 5 starters from last year. So that's the biggest question mark I may have when it comes to the Florida game. And like I said, I really won't feel comfortable about this LSU team until I see them against Clemson. Because you still got to play 2 more games before you get to the Florida game, of course. And I think the same thing goes for Florida, too. I think we both want to see what our teams are going to like when the first game is played. Because, we go to spring practice, we go to fall practice. Yeah, they can tell you a lot of things, but you won't know till they play another team. The last year, we all thought LSU's offensive line was the best in the country. Sure, you can make a case for the best pass blocking unit in the country, but when it came to run blocking, they weren't. And we didn't get a chance to see that because all indications showed that the offensive line was performing at a high rate during fall camp. But spring game and fall camp, you're just scrimmaging against your other teammates. So you may already know their strengths and the weaknesses. While if you go up against Clemson week 1, you have they are bringing back a lot of talent, but you have no idea what they're going to throw at you, right? So I think if the Florida LSU game were played tomorrow, I think the biggest disadvantage will be the offensive line. I think I like Garrett Nussmeier. And you've seen this common trend among LSU quarterbacks. Year 1, they look so-so, and then year 2, they blow up. And really, Garrett Nussmeier's first year as a starting quarterback, he actually had a way better first year than Joe Burrow and Jay Daniels. People forget both those like Joe Burrow had looked terrible at times during the 2018 season, his first year as a starting quarterback. There was 4 games where he completed 50% or less of his passes in 4 games that year. He went the entire month of October without throwing a touchdown. Jay Daniels at times, looked terrible, right? There's 2 games, I think, that year where he completed under 50% of his passes. I mean, at times he just looked more like a running quarterback than an actual, I'm going to throw for 4,500 yards, right? And then the next year, we all both know what happened. So Garrett Nussmeier, I think, is going to take that next step because he's already had everything thrown at him. I think I like a running back room. I think I like a running back room a little bit better with Caden Durham coming back, and then also Harlem Berry had looked fantastic in the spring. I think over time he's going to have a much bigger role in the running game. Receivers, I have no issue with receivers because LSU historically forever has produced a lot of great receivers. The defense, I think, looks a lot better. The one concern I had about the defense is the safety spot. But with the transfer portal and who they brought in, I feel a little bit better about that. But if you there's one position group where if the game we play tomorrow is the offensive line.
So we've talked about the quarterback comparison here. I'm kind of curious, sort of from afar, but also from watching the LSU Florida game last season. What are your thoughts on DJ Lagway and how he kind of developed through his true freshman season, coming in as a starter?
Yeah, I really liked DJ Lagway, and I like both the quarterbacks for Florida. I mean, I know people had some criticisms about Graham Metz, but I think both quarterbacks gave Florida a chance to win games. But I think DJ Lagway, his number. If you look at his numbers, they may not look impressive, but if you look at the eye test, if you look at what he brings to your offense, he is a very athletic quarterback, 6'3", 240 pounds. He's a big dude. And not only when he, but you kind of scared when he runs the ball because he's a big dude. But over the course of near the end of the season, he looked good. Although you could make a case that his production wasn't as strong near the end. But I think he will have a lot. People will feel a lot more confident in him because he played those last 4 games. You could kind of tell he was getting to the next step every single time, like a lot of young quarterbacks, right? You don't really expect young quarterbacks to have a breakout year. There's very few examples of that, right? Caleb Williams is the exception, not the rule. There's very few freshman quarterbacks that just have a fantastic year. And I think DJ Lagway, you could tell he has the potential to be something special. But then again, you can't rely on his talent alone. He has to be developed properly. Billy Napier still, he has to prove that he can develop quarterbacks at a high level. He's never really had the chance to do that. Remember, Billy Napier also got fired at Clemson because he couldn't develop the quarterback position. And then the second he left, Clemson's offense got better. So I think that's the biggest. If I had an opinion about Florida, I think the biggest question is how will they develop DJ Lagway? DJ Lagway is a very talented player, but they have to develop him and they have to play to his strengths and also kind of tinker with his weaknesses. He's always going to have weaknesses. But you have to find ways where, those weaknesses don't show up as often. You have to figure that out. I think the development is very key with DJ Lagway. He had a 12 touchdown to 9 interception ratio. That's not great. So you want to see him improve on that. But he has to develop as a passer, right? I think he could be a very special player for Florida. The high school rankings showed that. You saw some of his abilities last year, but he is the guy. He is the guy, and that's a mentality you have to have as a quarterback. You have to act like you are the guy. So if he has the mentality to act like he's the guy, and then the coach staff does a great job with his development, I think he could be a very special player for Florida. And Florida really hasn't had you can make a case for Kyle Trask, but outside of Kyle Trask, Florida really hasn't had great quarterback play. Right? It's almost really for Florida, both Florida and LSU, the biggest setback for both those teams was quarterback play. That has changed for LSU in recent times, but outside of Kyle Trask, Florida has been a quarterback graveyard. So can DJ Lagway kind of flip the script the same way that Joe Burrow and Jane Daniels did for LSU?
Yeah, I think I think you're giving Billy a little bit too much, not enough credit for his QB development. Not that it's been great. You mentioned his time at Clemson, but I think you go and look back to 2019 when he was the offensive coordinator for Arizona State, and that was Jaden Daniels' first year. Now everyone knows Daniels going to LSU and winning the Heisman, having one of the best seasons, but Jaden Daniels' freshman year at Arizona State, where I think they beat a top 10 Oregon team, where he had a phenomenal game. Daniels was really good his freshman year, and there was a lot of hype around him after that season. But then Billy ends up, or 2018, it was one of the two, I can't remember. But then Billy ends up leaving for Louisiana, and then things kind of just, for Jaden Daniels, he gets a bit worse. Production gets a bit down. And Billy had his guy at Louisiana, Levi Lewis, who he developed over time, became his quarterback. They won a lot of football games there at Louisiana. And then, Anthony Richardson, he wasn't able to really develop him here, but he has Shane Steichen, right? That's who the Indianapolis coach is, who's one of the most well-known quarterback developers in the country. And he hasn't really been able to get out of the AR either himself. So, and I thought he got the most out of Graham Mertz that he could, that really maybe anybody could. Remember, Graham Mertz at LSU turned the ball over a ton. And he went to Florida, and in a season and a half, he threw like 5 total interceptions. Like, he wasn't a big play machine, but he was a really good game manager, I guess you would say. And, go from throwing like 20 interceptions to 5 total here, I think that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and I also want to say, so Billy Napier became the head coach of UL in 2018. He was there. I was going to say 2017, 2018. So Jane Daniels became the freshman quarterback. He was a starter quarterback at his freshman year at Arizona State. That was Rob Likens was the score. I actually just want to make sure because Billy Napier. Yeah, the reason why I know this because Billy Napier was out here in Louisiana, so I remember like kind of the rise and all the UL fans, kind of trash talking LSU fans. Like the last time we played UL, we beat you guys 45-3, and y'all haven't played us since. So, I think if you just look at the quarterback production under Billy Napier, it hasn't been great. I think DJ Lagway can be the guy to flip the script. I think it's not just a Billy Napier thing. I think it's just been a Florida thing. Outside Kyle Trask, there hasn't been a quarterback where like, yeah, this is our guy. Really, since Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow was like, yeah, this is the guy. Chris Leak. I think a lot of people forget about Chris Leak. Chris Leak was a very good quarterback, right? Chris Leak won the national championship at Florida under when Urban Meyer was head coach. So he was that guy. Florida, and like really, just even the 90s, Florida had like, this is our quarterback. This is our guy. We're going to throw the ball 50 times a game. You can't stop us. And I think Florida, like you need, and for Florida to be good, same thing with LSU, you have to have dogs, right? And can DJ Lagway be that dog? I want to see him be that dog because I think he can be a dog and he can be scary for everybody else, not only in the SEC, but around the country. Can you bring those dogs out? And the same thing for LSU. We're calling them dogs because you look at the production, but can you show that on the field? I think if you had to go play this game today, I think LSU would win like 38-31. I think it'd be a high scoring game. I'd see a lot of people showing 24-3 and like it's gonna be a low scoring game. I think it might be a little bit of a high scoring game. I think Florida is gonna improve offensively. I think LSU is gonna be great offensively. I think they'll be better defensively, but I think Florida has the skill talent needed to win games. But really, I want to ask you about your skill talent. How's the skill talent supposed to be? Because I think if you look at some of the great Florida teams in the past, they had awesome skill talent.
So we actually, like a month or two ago, did a video where we were discussing, is this the most talented team Florida's had since 08 and 09 when we had Tim Tebow and competing for the national championship? And the two teams that really competed with it was 2012 when we ended up going 11-2, and you'd think it would be the 2020 team because that was the team that made the SEC championship. We actually said the 2019 team because they had more defensive talent. And I ended up saying 2019. I believe the Tuna went 2012, if I'm not mistaken. But I think the skill talent on this team is the best since that 2019 team. And are you talking more just like the receivers and corners and running backs and safeties, or do you mean like the entire team?
Like skill positions, you mean, right? Like running backs, receivers.
I would say on the opposite side of the ball. I would say that.
Yeah. Okay. So, you look at our running back position, all about Jaden Ball. What happened last year? He was a true freshman, 4-star running back. Cole Kubelik recently did his running back room rankings for the SEC. He had Florida at number 1. Florida has one of the best running back rooms in the entire country in the SEC, so we're really good there. The receiving room is it's interesting because we bring in Jermichael Sturdivant from UCLA, where he transferred to UCLA from Cal, where he had some really good production, like 800-900 yard seasons. Then goes to UCLA, only had like 300 yards last year. Now I talked to an NFL scout. He watched his game. He has Sturdivant as like a top 10 receiver in this upcoming draft. He's like, man, UCLA's offense was just horrible. Bad QB play, horrible O-line play. And Sturdivant's more of a deep threat, which you don't have the QB to make the throws. You don't have the O-line to give you time to let the rep develop. So he thinks Sturdivant could be a really good receiver here, where Florida has one of the best offensive lines and QBs in the country. And then outside of him, you have Trey Wilson going into his junior year. Had a really good freshman season. I can't remember if he was all SEC freshman or not 2 years ago in 2022 or 2023. But like 600 total yards. He had some injuries. Then last year missed a lot of the season with the injury as well. if he's playing, he's going to be a pretty good wide receiver. We'll see how much he develops from a route running wise, but you're getting a good to great maybe receiver with him. And then the questions outside of him, you bring in 2 5-star freshmen. I mean, Dallas Wilson flipped from Oregon. He's the one who went for 200 yards in the spring game. Yeah. And then lesser known, Vernell Brown Jr., who was the third junior, I'm pretty sure, who was also a 5-star receiver, more of a slot guy, could back up Trey Wilson, another 5-star guy. And then the other guy we're looking at in this room, Aiden Mizell. I think he was just outside the top 100 a couple years ago. Speedster. I mean, if he put a little bit more weight on so he could be SEC ready. You saw him last year, torched Georgia on the 1 touchdown pass we had. He also had some big plays in the bowl game, had a big play against Mississippi State. I feel really good about the talent in this room. I mean, I like Billy Gonzalez, our wide receiver coach. I think the bigger question, you mentioned it, play calling. Are we going to have the routes that allow these receivers to get open, that allow DJ Lagway to make those tough passes that not many quarterbacks can? I feel like we have that offensive talent, the skill positions on the offensive side that are really fantastic. It's just, will Billy open up the offense, or will he give it to Russ Callaway, who, when at Stanford, ran the air raid? So will we see more? Because you have so much talent at receiver that you need to get these guys on the field. And you're not going to get them on the field when you're only running 2 receivers out there, when you're running 12 personnel sets. So I like the talent. It's just, will Billy let the offense do its thing?
Right. And look, I really hope this game is a lot like the 2000s, because I really hope that Florida can kind of bounce back and kind of bring back the magic in that LSU Florida. Because I feel like that was supposed to be the rivalry, but what happened was Nick Saban was a terrible NFL head coach. He's like, I'm going to become the head coach of Bama. But because I think if Nick Saban doesn't go to Alabama, LSU Florida will be the biggest rivalry for LSU, at least, because then we wouldn't have this debate about, okay, so who's our biggest rival? I think that's still a debate today. But I remember, as a little kid, I remember seeing Percy Harvin and Jeff Dents and Aaron Hernandez. Besides, on the field was a dude, right? And Riley Nelson. And I still say to this day, Tim Tebow is the greatest leader in college athletic history, right? All the personalities that he had to deal with and make sure they got their head straight and still was able to win 40-plus games as a quarterback is absolutely amazing. I said this on a different podcast, I think last year, where I said Tim Tebow is literally the Cyclops of Florida football, because Cyclops, of course, is the leader of the X-Men. Of course, the X-Men have all these different issues, right? You have a government that wants to get rid of them. You have some people that want to get rid of that try to kill them. Then you got the internalized pressure, because you got Wolverine wants to have your girl, and then Gambit's doing some crazy stuff, and you got to make sure to keep that stuff together. That's what I thought about Tim Tebow, and really, when I saw that documentary about what was the documentary on Netflix called?
Swamp Kings.
Swamp Kings. I was so disappointed. I'm like, yeah, it seemed more like an Urban Meyer rehabilitation doc than
it was.
Then okay, these Florida guys are crazy. I really want to see that. I wanted to be almost like the U, but for Florida football, because I love the U documentary, documentary that Eastman did part 1 and part 2, because they talk about all the crazy stuff that they did, and I want to see that from a Florida aspect, but we just never got, because the only way you're going to be able to get Urban Meyer on the doc is you talk about the good stuff. And I'm like, the second I saw him on the trailer, I'm like, yo, this is about to be a bad trailer. This is about to be a bad documentary. I was so disappointed. I really wanted to know more. I want to hear about the time Percy Harvin choked out his receiver. I really want to hear why that happened, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah, they definitely sacrificed, I guess, doing a project of journalism for access. That's what I tell people, when they ask me about it. I'm like, I mean, I loved it because I'm a Florida fan and was that was the formative years for me as a football fan, were those Urban Meyer teams. But like if you warrant, like I don't think it has a ton to offer you. I think it's mostly just fun to relive it as a Florida fan, which I agree. I think that was a missed opportunity because I think there are a lot of stories to be told, both good and bad, from that era of Florida football.
Yeah. And I remember they were doing the preseason stuff where like they were like up early in the morning, they were like doing all that crazy stuff. And really like how they brought in like how the jump pass came about, like this LSU. I thought that was a really cool aspect. And also and my favorite part about the documentary was when LSU beat Florida in that 07 game. So one of the greatest games I've ever seen. To see the atmosphere, and like I know that was probably unfortunate for Florida, but like I mean, from both sides. I mean, I felt like that. Yeah, LSU won, but I felt like both sides kind of won because that was a classic. That was a traditional SEC game coming down the last minute, running the ball down your throat. That's classic LSU Florida. That's what I want to see in this year's game. I'm look, yeah, it is fun as an LSU fan to see LSU beat Florida, but you also want to see the games, be competitive, for the games to mean something. The LSU Florida has not meant something since 2019. I want the game to mean something because I grew up with the LSU Florida game meaning something. It meant, this is the first primetime SEC game of the year. This is the game that determines whether you win the SEC title. Or now in modern times, it's just the game that will determine where you sit in terms of the playoff race and stuff like that. I really want the game to mean something. As a fan, I'm pretty sure you guys want the same thing. And now there's a lot of people in the comments commenting right now. I think they want to see something. We all want to see this game mean something because right now our second biggest rivalry is A&M, and I don't like it because it's not. It's like it just seems manufactured. Well, Florida LSU was a genuine. It still is a genuine hate because it's not even just football. We see Florida in basketball. We have to compete against Florida in basketball. We compete against Florida in baseball and softball and track and field. Like this is they're the only team in the SEC, in my opinion, where you can make a case like, oh yeah, this is our biggest rival, even more so than Alabama. Alabama, they can become really good at basketball too recently, in baseball, kind of the same thing. Florida and LSU have always battled against each other. I think the rivalry, I think people forget how big this rivalry really is because Florida, you guys have Florida State and Georgia, LSU, we have no idea who it is. So I guess it's the next team on our schedule, but I really want to see this game, especially football, mean something because it truly does. And it used to. We haven't had it in a while.
All right, we'll wrap this up here with. So you cut out when we were discussing it. What is your favorite moment from the Florida LSU games over the past few years?
Yeah, I think it's the 2020 and 2021 because those were my first two games as an LSU student. 2007 was a great game. And I'll say 2016 was. I mean, yeah. Of course, LSU's on the losing. I got to throw in that game because there's a lot of drama leading up to the game because, of course, Florida didn't want to play the game because of the hurricane and blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, the way the game ended. And then Florida had brought out the Mike the Tiger skeleton because remember, leading up to the game, Mike the Tiger died, so they brought the skeleton. Like, that was a lot of drama in that game. But that's like, I think those are my three that I remember. I would say 2010 is often forgotten about because that was the trick play on the field goal. And that was risky. In the swamp.
I was there.
Risky.
I was there. I was at that game. It wasn't fun.
And yeah, 2015 also, where you guys had to bring out the trick play. And that was the first game Florida played without Will Greer after his suspension.
Oh, yeah. I remember that. And that's the thing, too. Florida looked like it may have been the best team in the SEC that year because Alabama, they weren't sure like who the hell their quarterback was because it was like between Jake Coker and like Blake Barnett or whatever. And like, I still remember that. Like, but Florida looked like they were because they had a great defense. Will Greer looked like the best quarterback country. You guys are coming off of a upset victory of Ole Miss where you just put belt to axe. And then all of a sudden, boom, the PD stuff comes out. You're like, well, there's typical Florida again. Don't have a quarterback. Guess you got to bring out. What was the guy's name too?
Treon Harris.
Treon Harris, yes. So you had to bring up Trey Harris. It's like, oh, well, that's easy pickings for everybody else in the SEC because like he can run. That's about it.
He did throw
we
for
only
like 300
lost.
yards in that game. He threw for like
Yeah.
that was the best game. That was his best game
Really?
of his career. He
Yeah.
was actually good. Like it was after that game that he started being bad. Like
Yeah.
Florida just couldn't stop
Well,
LSU in that game.
Right.
Treon-
Fournette.
Yeah.
Well,
Little
I
left.
was rewatching this. LSU went up like 21-7, like early in the second quarter.
Yeah.
And then Treyon, there was like a bunch of wide open passes, once to Demarcus Robinson.
Mhm.
Jake McGee, I think, had 2 touchdowns in that game as well off some nice routes. And then we brought it back to tie it up like 28. And then LSU early in the fourth got that trick play on the field goal to score a touchdown. Then LSU's defense just shut us out the fourth quarter. And that really was what ended it. But, Grant, I'd like to say thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah.
Tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah, so you can find me at Saturate Grant on Twitter. Just my last name is spelled CHACHERE. But if you still have a hard time trying to spell it, just pull out your Tony Chachere's season out the cabinet and look at it. It's like, okay, Grant, CHACHERE. Boom. And but it's at Saturate Grant on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram at Grant Sachere. I'm pretty active on there. We actually do a live reaction video to the Super Regional after it's done. So if you're a Florida fan, want to see what's going on to LSU, probably not. I understand. So we're going to be live as soon as the game ends. But also, I think we're going to do something like this too. We're going to bring on different teams around that city to see how they're doing, get different perspective because you got to find content, especially during the summer. Of course, you got recruiting stuff going on. You got to make topics as you go. But I think this is the easiest way to do so. I actually very appreciate me having me join you guys. I know you've been guys trying to do this for a little while now. I just got caught up with a bunch of stuff. Like I had to work one day, and then another day I had to cover a game, and then I had a family stuff going on. But this is finally just like, okay, now I can hit up Tyler so I can come on. But I really appreciate you guys having me on, getting in perspective from the Florida side as well, because I'm sure trying to catch up with everybody else in that city. I've been so busy about LSU baseball and figuring out what's going on in LSU football that oh, wait, we got 15 other teams that we might want to look at too, because I think that SEC's gotten too big, in my opinion. I like how it used to be, where SEC had 12 teams and the Pac-12 was still in existence, and the Big Ten still had 11 teams to 10. So I missed that aspect of college football, but I guess we'll welcome in Texas, Oklahoma, and they bring in money to the conference. But even with the expansion, I still hope that LSU Florida is played every single year. I think it's a crime that this wasn't a part of LSU's rotation of games because of how big this rivalry has been the past 25 years. It is a huge rivalry, and I think it would be a shame for I understand maybe getting rid of the Auburn game. I get that, mate, and I get that, but you have to keep Florida in the rotation. I rather prefer a rotation of Alabama, Florida, and I could see Arkansas. Because to me, those are the 3 biggest rivals that we've had the last 25 years.
Absolutely. Thank you, Grant. I hope to see you when we get closer to the season. We're making official picks for this game. You said you have your show later tonight after the LSU. Who are you playing?
We're playing Arkansas Little Rock, so that's gonna be easy picking. I mean, they beat them 7-0 in the first game, and I just think LSU right now, when you get in the postseason play, their bullpen tends to get better. I mean, you saw that. I mean, well, besides game 2 of the College World Series Finals where they gave up 22 runs out of nowhere, and that's probably because Jay just pined it. It's all right, we'll play game 3. But LSU's bullpen was fantastic throughout that postseason. They're fantastic last season, and I expect them to be fantastic this postseason as well. But their pitch has been fantastic. They just need to be better at the plate. That's it. But I think they're getting more confident at that. But it'll be live probably right after the game ends. I don't know when because it's baseball. But if you guys want to hop on, if you guys want to come watch it, if you're a Florida fan, you're more than welcome to do so. No hate involved. We'll welcome anybody. This is non-discriminatory space. You guys are more than welcome to come over, support your fellow SC rivals. If not, just go to bed. But then again, it will be midnight in Florida. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. Go to bed. You guys got work in the morning.
All right. Thank you, Grant, for joining.
Appreciate it.
We will be back. We will be back right after this message.
You can make a difference here at the Voice of College Football. Use the Amazon link. Financially contribute to the Voice of College Football without spending a penny. Same shopping experience. It's easy. Go to any video on any channel. Go to the description section and grab the link right next to the capital letters that say Amazon. Use that link, and Amazon will instantaneously convert to your account, settings, history, everything intact, just like whatever link you use right now. No difference. Pay no attention to the product that you see right there. Just go search what you want. Don't forget the Amazon link. Thank you for your support. Sincerely, the voice of college football.
All right, welcome back. We still got a couple topics to discuss in this show. Let's get into the post-spring offensive line breakdown. Now, we've discussed about it all spring, winter. We expect this offensive line to be really, really good heading into this 2025 season. PFF just ranked it as the 4th best offensive line coming into the year. So we're going to discuss the depth we're looking at, the starters, and the freshmen and everything like that. I guess we'll start first. The best player on this offensive line, All-American, first-team All-American, got his break, Jake Slaughter at center. I mean, this is as good as it gets in the country at center. You know, we have no worries. I mean, you can have a worry about every little thing, but you can't really have a worry about Jake Slaughter here, and I think he's going to have a phenomenal season.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like you said earlier, interior linemen, centers, guards, not really valued the same way as tackles are, but I think a center specifically is so understated how important it is to have a good one. I think having issues at center can really screw a lot of things up, from communication to run blocking to pass blocking. There's a lot of different things that are not going to go well if you don't have a center you can trust. And like you said, Florida has probably the best center in the country, probably the first center that's going to hear his name called in the NFL draft next year. And yeah, I mean, that's huge. Having a returning All-American, I mean, because look, very few teams in college football have good offensive lines. I think that was the case last season. I think a lot of the top teams, outside of Notre Dame, really didn't have great offensive lines, and Texas too. And so to be bringing back a guy like that, and as we get into it, all the guys on this really is huge. And I think it's why that we're all pretty optimistic about this offense this season.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's going to be fantastic. I was watching, I talked about my NFL scout I talked to and everything. He didn't understand why Jake Slaughter didn't just come out. Probably would have been a second, maybe if he's lucky, first-round pick. Doesn't happen too often with center, so that's really where you're questioning there. But there's not much left for Jake Slaughter to prove. He's already shown everything. He's just hoping to put more elite product on tape, and I guess he hopes that a team is desperate need of a center and that they'll take him in the first round. So now you go to the guards here. I'm very confident in this room as well. You got at right guard Damian George, started here at right tackle for 2 seasons. Was it a season? I can't remember. And he was just horrible at right tackle. And everyone won one season. We all want to replace, but moves to guard, had a really underrated season last year. I think he fits well in the scheme. Really kept all those qualities that made him a good tackle, and translated some guards where we're worried less about people going around him. So I think you're really trusting him. And you have Kinjaya Harris, who is going into his third season here at UF. Started every game last year, I believe, at left guard here in his redshirt freshman season. So now you have a guy, a rare young player on the offensive line who started last year, who's now going into his second season here starting. I thought he played pretty well last year, and you're just hoping to get a bit more development from him to make him a better all SEC level guard.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think looking at these guards, Damian George is an interesting player to me because, yeah, like you said, played, I think, out of position his first year here, and you could tell. I mean, he was, I think, pretty obviously the weak link, or at least a weak link on that offensive line that season.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was an all SEC caliber player last year, but I mean, he was very solid. He was reliable. You kind of didn't have to think about him very often. And that's kind of what you're looking for from offensive linemen. You don't want them to, if you're noticing offensive line play, that's probably a bad thing. So I think he was really solid in that regard. I mean, Najee Harris, I mean, and I don't say this to be derogatory at all, like more to illustrate how good this offensive line is. Like he was maybe the weak link on this group last year, and not even I mean, like, again, I'm not saying that like to be negative toward him. He's a good player, but I think that just goes to show how good this offensive line was last season, and really should be again this year, because it's returning practically everything except for right tackle, which we'll get to. But yeah, I mean, I think this starting guard pairing, it really is. I would say this whole interior is, I think, as good. I mean, I'm not going to pretend I sit here in June and know everyone's rosters, but I have a hard time believing there are many teams that feel better about their interior offensive line situation than Florida does right now.
Yep. And now we go to the tackles, like you said. Left tackle Austin Barber, a lot of hype around him, being talked about as a potential first-round draft pick. You're probably hoping to get a healthy season out of him. He's had a bunch of injuries here, not major, but nagging injuries that just decrease your play by a little bit. And I think if you get a full healthy season of Austin Barber, you're talking about one of the better tackles in the country and in the SEC. And, I'm hoping we get that from Barber and hoping he can become a first-round draft pick. And then you look at right tackle, you're replacing Brandon Crenshaw-Dixon, who was a really underrated tackle last year for us. We started Cam Waits in that first game, and he had a 0 pass blocking grade, which was just remarkable to have a 0. But Crenshaw-Dixon takes over that starting spot, and you notice there was just less and less talk about the offensive line and the tackle position, and it was a lot of things about Dixon's how much he played well. But now you're replacing him with probably Bryce Levette. He was a starter in the spring. I suspect he will start in the fall in the season. The first game against Miami, it was all negatives. I mean, you lose in 41-17 to your rival at home. It's going to be all negatives, but I watched it, broke down the game a bit more, and Bryce Levette had like 20 or so snaps. And I watched those snaps against a pretty good Miami defensive line, and Levette really impressed me with his blocking abilities and understanding of the offense. I thought you could have argued for him to start last season, and we end up seeing him start in the bowl game against Tulane. Tough start to that bowl game. Now he had Cameron Waits at right guard right next to him, who also struggled a bit, put a little bit more pressure on him. But I thought that he really settled in, and what kept going on in that game, he played really well. I'm excited to see him start here. I think he's a phenomenal guard, and if he can translate that to the right tackle position, I think we're going to have a phenomenal right tackle.
Yeah. I mean, I think I would say the tackles I feel less good about than I do the interior, but I still think it's poised to be solid to potentially very good. Barber, another guy like Slaughter, who probably could have, been, I'm not saying he would have been a first round pick if he had gone to the draft, but maybe day two. And, I think a big win for the Gators to get him back. Obviously, I think when you look at sort of how non-active Florida was in the transfer portal, I think you can't ignore the fact that they clearly gave very large NIL contracts to Jake Slaughter and Austin Barber to get them to come back this year. And then the right tackle spot's interesting to me because I think it's really the only position here where there's even like a semblance of a competition. I don't really think it's one. Like, I think this is pretty clearly Bryce Levette's job, but I mean, I think, we didn't see him a ton. I think, like you said, pretty promising when we did see him. I think this is definitely the position where I have the most concern, just because it's the position where we're doing the most projecting. We just don't really know exactly what Bryce Levette's going to look like. But then also, guys like Devin Manuel in there too, a veteran who we haven't really seen a ton of, but you could go to him if you needed to. So there's depth options, but I think that 5 that we've set up there is in all likelihood what you're going to see against Long Island.
Yeah, George, I'm not going to post that on here, but shout out Dijon Johnson, I guess. Moral of the story there. Shout out Dijon. But yeah, now we look at the depth at those positions. I guess let's go snake order, say at tackle here. You look at who's going to be backing up. You talked about the possible bad tackle with Bryce Levette. I think the names you are looking at are Caden Jones, former 4-star recruit, Devin Manuel, who I'm surprised decided to stay on this team going into his senior season. Former Arkansas starter, played well at Arkansas, not too well here last year. But, I mean, him as your backup is really solid. If you had like a Devin Manuel on the defensive line, I think a lot of people would feel really confident about that D-line depth. But, you have those two. And Fletcher Westfall, who was a near top 200 recruit offensive tackle. show 6 foot. It was nearly 6'9". Crazy size on Fletcher Westfall there. So you look at those guys; those three will probably end up rotating to be the backups for left and right tackle. I assume they know what they're doing there, but yeah, I like the depth. You got your 4-star guys, and you got an experienced Devin Manuel there, so I like that tackle depth.
Yeah, I mean, talking about Fletcher Westfall, I mean, yeah, first of all, 100% fits the Billy Napier tackle archetype. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Billy likes his tackles, I mean, very tall and big. I mean, I think he's a guy that honestly, at one point earlier in the offseason, I thought maybe could push for a starting. Yeah, push. We both. Yeah, you're right. We both did. Like, thought could push for the starting right tackle spot. Doesn't really look like that's happening, but I think a guy that will rotate in there. And I think, like, is it ridiculous to say that I think by season's end, he's probably your 6th man, or like, it's not 6 man's not the right word, but like for next tackle up.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think last year it was Bryce Levette, and he ended up playing both tackle and guard.
Mm-hmm.
I think you get into the guard depth here. I think you're looking at that 6th man as Roger Kearney, but I guess he could be. I know I heard some good things about Caden Jones still. They really like him, and man, I mean, we'll see. It's too early to tell right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just kind of will be determined. But yeah, I agree with you. I think the depth here. I mean, look, no one has like incredible offensive line depth. If you have 5 good offensive line starters, you're in the, in the minority there.
I think we might have some pretty dang good offensive line depth though. So, because we talked about the tackle, we talked about Manuel Westfall and Caden Jones. You have a good solid mix there. Then you go to the offensive guards. You have, I forgot Roger Kearney, who was a top 125 top 125 recruit, was an offensive tackle of high school, is a guard here. All you hear about in camp when you're asked, like, who was the toughest guy to beat 101? They always say Roderick Kearney, which just goes to show how good our starters are. Now, maybe it's a thing of learning the offense and not picking up blitzes and stuff like that very well, but 101, they say he's the best offensive lineman on the team, or the best, the hardest to get past. So I think you're looking at him as your backup. That's really exciting for us. The other backup, we're looking at Marcus Maskell, another former 4-star recruit where is he out of? He's out of Louisiana, wasn't he?
That sounds right. I think maybe Georgia. I don't think he was a Florida.
Sellville, Georgia. Okay, it's out of Georgia.
Okay.
But yeah, 4-star guy, solid there. I mean, you're also looking at Noel Portenjagen and Knock Lagno. I'm not sure how to pronounce his names, of course, but like
Enoch Wangoy, I think is how you say it.
Enoch Wangoy. Okay, we'll go with that. But I think you have Kearney, especially because you're going to interchange if he plays left guard or right guard, I assume. I think Kearney is a really good backup. If he gets hurt, then you're maybe a bit more worried. I don't know how Matt Maskell is going to be. And then you have your 2 guys from Germany and Europe or England. So don't really know how well they are. But I really like Kearney there in that backups position.
Yeah, another interior depth guy that I'm kind of curious about is Jason Sandamela. A guy that was
center.
So that's what I was. That was like what I was gonna say. Was what I'm curious about is if he has the positional versatility to play anywhere else other than center. Like if he has the potential to provide interior depth. I'm not sure. That's kind of the question I was gonna raise.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, you go to center, then you have Slaughter obviously starting, then Jason Sandamela, who ironically is our highest rated offensive line recruit in the Billy Napier tenure, but is also the shortest offensive lineman on the roster. You think of highly rated offensive line recruits, you're thinking of those tackles who are big, monstrous guys. But then you look at our highest one, it's the shortest offensive lineman on our roster. We haven't seen him play much, obviously, but I'm kind of just trusting that learning from Jake Slaughter and how good our offensive line development has been. You have a guy of this magnitude from high school. I got a feeling he's got to be at least pretty good, decent. And, he's a backup to Slaughter. If Slaughter gets hurt, it's really going to suck. Maybe you try to move like a Kearney or someone else inside, but maybe Sandamela is ready. He has that high ranking for a reason. So,
Yeah. And I think I think the interior is an area. Like, I think I would rather, like, if you told me Florida has to take an injury to the offensive line and it can be either the interior or the tackle spots, I personally would take the interior. I kind of feel a little bit better about that depth as of right now.
Yeah. Then you look at the freshman we bring in, Jahari Medlock, 3-star offensive lineman, also out of Atlanta, Georgia, 6'5", 308. So, I mean, we like our tackles tall. So I'm not sure if Medlock is a tackle or a guard. He was a tackle in high school and was listed as a tackle in recruiting services. So I don't know. I got to see his wingspan. And then Tavares Dice, who was a 4-star also out of Georgia, a longtime Auburn commit, 6'3", nearly 6'4". I know they talked about him having some positional swing of being able to play guard and tackle. Not going to see much. I doubt we see much of him. Also, he suffered an injury. I forgot about that. So I don't think he's even going to have a chance to play. Not listed on the roster, but will be coming on campus. You also bring in Daniel Pierre-Louis, who is a 3-star interior offensive lineman. Was there any other freshmen, or is that just those 3?
I think it's just those 3. I think that's it.
All right, so look at tackle. What would you give that grade? What would you give it as a grade?
Like the whole room, like all the tackles to get starters and depth.
Yeah.
I think I'd give it like a B, probably.
B?
Like,
wow.
Well, I mean, I think Barber's good. I think we know that. I think we don't know that Levette is good. We hope he is. Like, I think the problem is there's just not a lot proven for the tackle group outside of Austin Barber. Like, I think the potential's high, so maybe like B+. But I think it'd be hard for me to go too much higher than that, just because I think there is there's just way more projection we're doing for the tackles, I think, than we are for the interior guys.
That's fair. I'm gonna go A- because I mean we both like Austin Barber. We'll see if he can become like a 1st-round pick. But I mean, I'm really high on Bryce Levette. Now maybe he isn't as good as a tackle, but the fact that they're playing him there right now and they had it was pretty known going into spring, among them at least, that Bryce Levette was gonna be the guy. So. And then you include the depth. I really like the depth there. So I'm going to give it an A-. And then guards. Ooh, guards is tough. I think I'm also going to go. I mean, guards are a bit tougher because you're not going to have many guards who are projected like 1st, 2nd, even 3rd-round picks there. So if you have like some of the best guards in the country, they're not going to really show off the page. But would the best guard group in the country be an A+? Right? It would have to be, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's like relative. I'm probably sitting at. Sorry, what were you saying?
I was like, even if they're not, projected first day 1 or day 2 picks, like.
But just because like there's not a lot of projected day 1 interior linemen in the first place, so it's like to me, it's all relative to like the position group. So like I have this, I'd say like an A- to like a soft A.
Yeah.
Like I kind of probably am a little closer to an A-, but I'm not that far from bumping it up to A. Just again, there's a lot of youth and inexperience kind of behind the start. If you're just talking about the starters, I think it's an A+ or AA+.
You think George and Harris are an A+?
I guess. Okay, you're just saying guards.
Oh, we can include Slaughter.
I thought we were doing interior in general. Yeah. I think that's fair. If we're not including Slaughter, it's probably starters more like an A. A-. If we're including center, then I mean, AA+ probably. You got to say, right? I mean, best center in the country.
I'll go A+. Yeah, including Slaughter. I'll go A+.
Yeah.
So really,
I'm pretty high on George. I think George is like gonna be. I'm not saying all SEC, but I think he's gonna be like an upper echelon interior lineman in the SEC.
Like maybe 3rd team all SEC.
Yeah, like legit, maybe something like that.
Yeah. So and Slaughter, if he does what he does last year, is 1st team easily. So if you have 2 all SEC interior,
I mean, it's like Slaughter. Is he gonna be an All-American? I mean, like. He should be. I mean, that really should. I mean, I think that's a lot to. That's what I'm saying. That's like a lot to put on a guy, but like, he should repeat if he's healthy.
I'm not gonna come out here and make my predictions, being like, "Oh, he did it last year. He can't do it again." I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt because he did it last year and it wasn't a fluke. I mean, he played. I know. was it DeCosta posted who Slaughter had to play last year, and it was Walter Nolan, Shamar Stewart, Norman Law from Tennessee, Deion Walker, Keyshawn Silver, and other names that are not coming to top. Joshua Farmer, Daryl Jackson. Like, he was playing elite defensive linemen who were day 1, day 2, and day 3 picks in the NFL draft. So he did it against elite competition, and he did it really well.
Yeah.
All right. So I've been keeping a track here. No new commitments yet. We were expecting some within soon. Could be today, could be tomorrow. We don't know. Big official visit weekend. So we'll just get into that now. Where'd I put it? Oh wait, actually, gotta do this. No, I did that already. Okay. Where'd I put it? Oh, okay. Here we go. Recruiting. I didn't type that out. Whatever, we'll just go with it. Okay. It's time for an uptick in recruiting. We'll just go with it. All right. We have a huge official visit weekend. Last week I previewed it. We had 17 or 18 people coming on visits. One of them canceled. I believe it was Javion Cooper, 4-star interior offensive lineman committed to Syracuse. Heard there were some questions of whether or not he's a take or not. But we're going to go down the list of players who came on visits. We're going to talk about how well they went, what we think, can we land them. We're going to start with the 5-star, Braylon Womack. It's been reported he said that he had a 10 out of 10 visit here at UF. Really surprised him. He really liked the family feel he had here. We know he has a great relationship with Vinny Sunseri. I still don't think he comes to Florida unless Ohio State fumbles him. And then we're still battling Auburn and Texas A&M.
Yeah, I mean, it would be huge. I mean, I'd love to get him. I don't. I'm kind of with you though. Like, I don't really see it. Like, I mean, it's like, I mean, I guess Ohio State could still fumble. I think I don't think there's really a lot of precedent for Ohio State fumbling with 5 stars. But
it's more common that they fumble them in the South, the ones from the South.
That is true. But I think this is one of those things where I'm glad that the Gators are in this one. Like, I'm glad they're pushing for it. And it seems they are like legitimately in it, but my money would not be on Braylon Womack signing with the Gators.
Yep. All right. Next one, big time, near top 100 player, cornerback CJ Brona out of Winter Garden, Florida. Nebraska commit. I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up flipping within the next 24 hours. I mean, that's not intel I'm getting. It's just had a really good visit. He's flipping from Nebraska. It would be very, very hard seeing him him signing with Nebraska here. Florida, FSU, Penn State, I believe is the other school in it. I'm not really worried about FSU, and I think he's coming home. I think he'll be in this class.
Yeah. Didn't Florida pick up an on-3 projection here? Or am I thinking of somebody else?
Don't think so.
Okay, then I might be thinking of somebody else.
No, not yet, at least.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I do agree though. I do think Florida has a good chance here. Windermere kid, like, we'll see. I mean, I guess maybe part of it depends on what the relative trajectories are for how we feel about Florida and Nebraska football in the coming months. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a good chance it doesn't make it that far for him. I think you're right. I think this is one we could see. And again, yeah, no intel here either. It just, judging by the vibes, it kind of feels like this is one that could pop potentially soon.
Yeah. Next, we're going to talk about 4-star defensive lineman Vodney Cleveland out of Birmingham, Alabama. This one I feel really, really good about. Named Florida his leader about a month ago. And then Texas got really involved. He hasn't called Texas or said anyone else was his leader. But, when Texas gets involved, you have to worry a little bit. Then he comes on this official visit, says Florida is still his leader and that he plans on committing within like the next 2 weeks. I feel really good here. Now, he's going to take visits to Georgia and Texas, who are the 2 biggest threats, Texas specifically here. But he's called Florida's leader twice in the past month. Did it today. Texas, when they have that money, Georgia, I mean, I'm going to say he ends up in this class, but it's like, I'm not going to doubt his words.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think Florida has a decent shot on this one. I mean, I don't love Texas coming in for a defensive lineman. I don't love that. I mean, I think we'll just see. I would say if he had to make a decision right now, it kind of seems like it's probably Florida. Will that change when he goes to Austin in a couple weeks? Perhaps. So I'd kind of I'd say I am leaning towards him being a Gator. The upcoming visits kind of give me some pause.
Yeah, that's fair. Next, we'll talk about tight ends. Hayes McKent out of Brunswick, Georgia. This is another one. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up committing within the next 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I say tight end because he's 6'6", 305 pounds. He's kicking teams
crazy.
out that.
I'm not crazy, right? That kid's not going to play tight end in the SEC, is he?
So he's kicking teams out that are recruiting him to play offensive line. He kicked Bama out of his recruitment. He has a great relationship with Russ Callaway. Okay. This is one I expect to commit to Florida. Now, he has a visit to Miami, who is the main threat to Florida. But at this point, I'd be shocked if he isn't in our class. I mean, we talked about, is he an offensive lineman? I was watching some of his huddle the past week. I watched him, 6'6", 205 pounds, take a screen pass for a touchdown. And that's just, he's going to need to lose some. We'll see what happens. He's going to have to lose some weight if he wants to play tight end here. But I know from what I messaged Tyler a couple hours before the show saying we might get a commitment soon. And the two names I said were Janari Carr, and Hayes Kent. Because Carr didn't talk to reporters after his visit, neither has Kent. I'm expecting him to be in this class, and it could be soon.
Yeah, I'd probably, for my money, I'd probably say he's the one that pops next. I think, we'll just see. If he is adamant that he wants to play tight end and Florida's pursuing him this heavily, I'll give the coaches the benefit of the doubt and trust they know how to use him. But I'm not sure you're playing, at least, maybe you could play in the Hayden Hansen role. I don't know if you're playing as a true, receiving tight end at 6'5", 300 in the SEC. I think there's probably going to need to be some body reworking there, but an intriguing player. And I think, I agree. I think decent chance to get him. What's up?
Watch that screen pass he took for a touchdown.
I'll have to go watch the huddle.
All right. Sorry. All right. Next, we'll talk about 4-star defensive lineman out of Tupelo, Mississippi, Jaraylin McCoy. Another one. I expect us to have a phenomenal defensive line class, and McCoy's the next name brought up here. He's named Florida his leader, and I'm pretty sure he's still on it. It's very similar with Vodney Cleveland, as Texas is jumping into this recruitment. He's going to Texas next week. I'm not saying it's impossible that he also commits here soon, but he has a commitment date set for July 1st. The staff really tried to push him to commit. We're in the lead, but again, he's visiting Texas. We don't know what will happen. This kid's a monster, though. I think if he has a really productive season, his sophomore year, he had 11.5 sacks. This past junior year, he only had 1.5. I don't know if they moved him around or whatever happened there, but it's 6'7", 250. This kid is a behemoth. Will play that F position, I think, for us. I think we land him, but got to worry about Texas still.
Yeah, this is one of those that seems pretty good for Florida. I think the fact that at least to this point we haven't gotten a commit from him yet out of the weekend kind of makes me a little bit.
He has that date. He's had that date set. He's had that July 1st date set. So.
Yeah, that's true. I guess what I'm saying is though, that's at the end of this upcoming recruiting visit. So like you said, Texas in 2 weeks. This coming weekend, Ole Miss, in-state school that he was sort of was at one point considered the favorite for him.
Well, he recently named the top 3, and it did not include Ole Miss.
Yeah. No, I guess I'm saying if he's taking an official there though, he's
Yeah,
obviously still keeping them in the. That's what I'm saying. Can they claw back in there? I think Florida's still the team to beat here. It's just I always get nervous when it's you get a visit the first weekend and then they're going to all these other schools that are definitely still in the mix. I don't know. I don't like other teams getting the last word in, but I still think this is probably one where Florida is better positioned than anyone else.
Yep. All right. We're getting into another edge rusher here. Ashari Charles out of Venice, Florida. Heavy Miami lean. He came up to visit saying he was really surprised, like the visit. I don't know if this guy is much of a culture fit, though. There was some interesting verbal wordage used in his interviews. It kind of made the visit seem like a joke. Like, he said it was a really good visit and everything, but like, he was just saying some goofy stuff in the interview. And Miami's been the heavy favorite here for a while. And I think with the other edge rushers, and I don't know if he's more of an F or an actual Jack, so that could determine things, but I suspect he'll go to Miami.
Yeah, I didn't see the specific interview that you're referring to, so I can't really comment on that. But I think this seems like a Miami battle. I think Florida kind of has other guys along the defensive line that they're prioritizing a little more here.
Okay, I just saw something surprising here that we'll get to later, but yeah, I mean, yeah, I still don't see it happening. It just doesn't feel like a Billy Napier. A lot of Billy Napier. I mean, George actually posted it. I think it was George, maybe Gator Swag, in the comments that I can't find the comment here, but they're talking about us seeing it more as a business. Now, it was a family-like business, but more of a business, and it just didn't seem very business-like. I mean, I don't know. I'm judging too much off of articles from reporters, so maybe I'm just looking too much into it. All right, next, really confident in the from Milton, Florida, Caden Hall, 4-star safety, 6'2.5", 200 pounds, was considered probably Bama was the favorite for a while here, but coming off this visit, he received crystal balls to Florida, has named Florida his leader. Now he's still going to take that visit to Bama, and I believe there's another school he's visiting. He's visiting a couple other FSU in Oklahoma. Has a commitment date of July 5th, another early July commitment date. But I think Florida positioned itself really well here, and we got crystal balls. I expect him to be a Gator at this point.
Yeah, I think that's probably. Wait, so does he have? He doesn't have a crystal ball from 247. Does he have one from
RPM?
Oh, he has the on-3 prediction. Oh yeah, okay. I see.
Yes, two of them.
I see it now.
One from Alderman and one from Bender.
Yeah, I mean, I think this one, like, again, you don't love you want to shut these down at the official. You know, you don't want them to visit you and then go visit 4 other schools. Like, ideally, they commit on Sunday, coming off the visit Sunday or Monday or whatever. But yeah, I think this is one where the Gators are in a pretty good spot as long as like something doesn't really drastically change with those other officials.
Yep. Next, we got 4-star corner out of Cocoa, Florida. CJ Hester has been considered a Florida lean for a long time, even going back to last year. He talked about Florida being that number 1 team on his board. Has a commitment date also July 1st or July 2nd. I can't remember exactly what the date is, but 6'1", 175. Also, still visiting Iowa, Georgia, and Syracuse. But I mean, I'd be shocked,
right?
Oh, and I don't see that. Is that on 247?
Yeah, I don't see Georgia. I do see UCLA.
I also see one for Auburn here, so we'll see what happens there. I'd be shocked if he's on this class at this point. It's a heavy Gator lean here, so has crystal balls from nearly everybody on the site or on RPMs.
Yeah, especially when the on-3 is really high on the Gators. Getting him, like, you kind of look at who they're competing with here. I don't think, I mean, aside from Georgia, I mean, I'm not sure how much Georgia's even pushing here, but not really incredibly stiff competition for him. Like, yeah, and Coco kid, like, I think this is kind of a no-brainer.
Yep. All right, next we got 2 linebackers back-to-back here. So DQ Thorkba, a couple weeks ago, named Florida his number 1 team. 6'2" linebacker he's out of IMG. He's from Georgia. I don't know how to pronounce that place in Georgia's name, but named us as leader again here. If he's a take, I'm not sure. I think he is a take. I'm honestly a bit surprised he hasn't committed yet, honestly. If I'm assuming he's a take. Because from what I've heard, he won the linebackers MVP at a Rivals camp. And from people I've talked to, had pretty good size, had pretty good measurings Friday here. I'd be shocked if he's not a take. But I mean, I expect him to be a Gator if he is. I think that's the question there.
Yeah, I think that is the question is like if and like, I agree. I don't really see why he. I mean, I'm not obviously privy to like all the information they have, but I'm not really sure why he wouldn't be a take. Decently high, top 250 guy. Like, I don't know if this class is in a position where you can be turning down guys like that want to be Gators. So.
Yeah, I've talked to some people. They think he could rise up the rankings a bit. I mean, now his rankings, unranked on 3, unranked 247, unranked on Rivals, but ESPN has him at 41. So that does weigh it out a bit. So, but some people have said they think he could rise up. Next, now this guy is more of a question of if he's a take. FSU commit Kayron Maycock. Is he a 4-star on the composite? I'm not sure.
I'll tell you. He is not. He's composite for number 461 nationally.
Okay. So 3-star linebacker out of Miami Central. Miami Central produces some dogs, though. So he's 6'1", 180, which is really small for a linebacker. But from people I've talked to, they think he could easily bulk up here in this weight program. Really good athlete. Someone that if they end up taking, I think they take Forkba, and then you got to choose between Malik Morris, Kayron Maycock, and if they still want to push for Isaiah Williams, we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I mean, if he's a take, I don't see much trouble flipping him from FSU. I mean, we saw it last cycle, flipped like 3 or 4 FSU commits, so I'm not too worried there. I think he'd be a Gator if we want him.
When you look at his build, he almost is like built like a safety, and he's listed as also listed as a safety on 247 Sports. Like, yeah, you kind of wonder if he's going to be one of those sort of hybrid guys, like almost like what we were talking with Grant earlier about the role Harold Perkins is going to be in. You almost wonder if that's kind of what the vision would be here. This kind of feels like borderline to me on whether it would be a take. I think it kind of depends on what happens elsewhere with some other guys. I mean, maybe it's a take for no other reason than to stick it to FSU. I mean, like, honestly,
I don't.
I mean, like, I'm not even really joking. Like, I mean, like, I'm not saying Billy would just take a guy that he doesn't like to like screw over FSU. I got you. But if you're borderline and it's a rival and you can take him, like, probably should. So that's I kind of am with you on that. Like, I think Easy probably could flip him if he's a take. I probably would lean towards not a take, but I could see it happening.
Yep. All right. Next, we're going to talk about an interesting player here, Tyson Bacon, 3-star defensive lineman out of Hoover, Alabama, one-time Tennessee commit, if I'm not mistaken here, 6'4", 265. From people I've talked to, they really like Tyson Bacon, and they think he's a bit underrated there, but it's real interesting here because you look at our D-line we're going after. Vodney Cleveland is above Bacon. Valden Stone, I believe, is also above him. We already took Jameer Perez to be our nose tackle. McCoy, I expect to be that F, but could also play DT, even the tackle. So I'm not sure if we're trying to take 3 defensive tackles in this class. So if they are, then I could end up seeing him being that player who does end up in this class. Because I think if he's a take, like, they put some pressure on, not as easy as some other players we've talked about, but I do think he would land at Florida if we really want him.
Yeah, this kind of strikes me as like a backup plan, sort of guy that they're keeping in the fold. I think, like, I will say you look at the offers and the visits, and it's like, okay, he's definitely drawing some interest here. It kind of feels like to me that Florida has bigger fish they're looking for, and I'm not sure this would happen unless like they were to lose out on a guy like Vodney Cleveland or something.
Yep. All right. We already talked about Janari Carr earlier in the show. We're happy we got him out of Ocala and everything. So next we'll go down. This is a very interesting recruitment to me. So 3-star wide receiver Brian Williams out of Lake Mary, Almonte Springs, Florida here. So he's a 3-star, isn't like the 600s on the on-3 composite. Is he also down the 247?
He's actually even lower. He's 757 on the 247 composite.
So he's 6'4", 185. And you look at his official visits. Florida, obviously. Alabama, Notre Dame, Penn State, and Kentucky. So you're looking at 5 Power 5 programs. I mean, Kentucky's a bit of a wild card there. But
yeah, that's a crazy official visit list, by the way. Just crazy official visit list.
Yeah, all around the country. But it's like, how often do you see 3-stars, guys in the 700s or 600s, have that 5 Power 5 officials, not an offensive lineman, like, because offensive lineman happens all the time, but with non-offensive linemen, like you're looking at 3 teams that are like projected to make the playoffs, and then 2 other SEC schools in Florida and Kentucky. I watched his film. I really liked it, but I've talked to people who actually watch him play in person. His stats are just like really bad.
Yeah.
So like that's
359 yards last year as a junior, 359 yards and 5 touchdowns.
And his quarterback was a Notre Dame commit, Noah Grubbs. Grubbs, one of the two. I can't remember.
Grubbs. It's Grubbs.
Grubbs. Yeah. So it's now the number 1 receiver from that team did walk on at UCF. So he's a D1 athlete. So obviously he had some other good players in front of him. But from what I saw, he's really good footwork, like doesn't rely on his size to do everything. This is a really interesting one because I don't know why he's rated so low, but I also don't know why he had so little yards. You know?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's tough because it's like production versus like also, I mean, it seems like a pretty good athlete. Like he's like a track and field guy, high jump, plays basketball. Like
he has all the intangibles.
Yeah. So maybe, I mean, yeah, that is weird though to like not be producing in high school, especially like as an upperclassman. It's not like we're talking about like a 2027 kid or something like that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know about this one. Like, I kind of would say I feel like he's probably going elsewhere, but I mean, if Florida really wanted him and prioritized him, could they get a kid from Lake Mary over Penn State or Notre Dame? Like maybe, yeah, I mean, like decent chance, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, if he's like things just don't add up with this kid. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens there. I mean, maybe he has a really good year this year, and maybe he doesn't have good connection with the Grubbs. All right. Next, out of Baton Rouge, what do you think of a kid out of Baton Rouge and them having Florida ties? That feels weird. But Blaze Tomasi, I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounced it. We're taking him. It's weird because On3 has limited at tackle, but we're recruiting him to play center. Out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, 6'5", 260, a big center.
That's a tall center, man. Yeah.
So we're the leader. He named us his leader. But from what I was told, as of right now, he's not a take. What interests me is what other center are we recruiting over him? Because I don't know any names off the top of my head that we're trying to push that's maybe higher ranked. But if he would have already been committed if he was a take.
Yeah, I almost wonder. I almost wonder if like it depends on, because you're right. It doesn't really seem like there's anyone else they're recruiting. Like, do you think they want to see like how Zanmella is gonna progress this year and see if they feel like he's a long-term answer there?
I don't see how that would affect it though, because he's not.
I don't know.
So I don't know. I don't know. Maybe there's going to be some other visit. Maybe there's another offensive lineman we just don't know is a center that we're recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
Next, another interesting one, Javari Lucas, 6'5", 270 out of Belglade, Florida, 270, so pretty small as of right now. He's only ranked on 2 of the sites, so in the composite and on 3, he's in the thousands on 3. From what I was told, the staff really likes him. Like, he's a take as of today, from what I was told, which is real interesting because a player like Javion Cooper is a 4-star, and Blason, I said his name, Tomasi, who's ranked higher, is also not a take. And I'm surprised Lucas hasn't committed. I mean, maybe I'm getting bad information and he's not a take. But from what I heard, they really like Lucas.
Yeah, Crystal Ball just came in yesterday from 247. So it's like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the deal is with that. I mean, unrated nationally by 2, or unrated at all by on the 247 composite doesn't even crack in the list. I mean, I don't know what to make of that. I mean, these guys still have another season of high school ball to play. And there's more evaluation stuff at camps and all that this summer. So I kind of doubt this guy's going to finish unranked in the composite, but would be a weird take, especially the fact, considering Florida does have some developmental guys at tackle already, and they signed in the last class.
Yeah, it's just weird that, because from what I've heard, he is a take. and I don't know why he wouldn't be committed yet if he's a take.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, you would think.
Mbachu was unranked at this time last year. Like we took some players that weren't ranked as of now at this time. So maybe Lucas jumps up because they really like him from what I heard. So I don't know. All right, the last player on this visit list, Corey Howard, just a few weeks ago, didn't have an offer from us or anyone of importance. But out of Valdosta, Georgia, in like a week span, received an offer from Georgia and Florida. Took a visit here. I was told he's not a take as of now. Unranked player, doesn't even have a profile picture on 3. So he's visiting Georgia next week, I believe. They don't even have the visits here. I know he's visiting Georgia. But 6'6", 260, he has the size. Big size guy right there. So I don't. That's 260 edge rusher.
I see 6'6", 235.
On 3, maybe on 3 is wrong.
On 247.
Because 6'6", 260 is like FD tackle range right there.
Yeah, 6'6", 235 would like make more sense. So I'm assuming that's right, but I don't know for sure.
So I'm not gonna say if he's a take, he's a commit right now because he's. I mean, I don't know Valdosta, Georgia allegiance. Like if you're a Georgia kid and Georgia offers, like if a kid out of Ocala or Georgia or Gainesville is a take here at Florida, they're going to be a Gator. Like, yeah. So maybe, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we end up in this class, but I also don't know whether or not he will end up being a take.
Yeah, I mean, my question is his offer from Georgia committable right now? I'm assuming it probably isn't.
Yeah,
and so I think to me, this is probably as simple as which of the two gives him a committable offer first. And if they both do around the same time, I'd probably give the edge to Georgia because it's a kid from Valdosta. But I think this is kind of waiting out Florida and Georgia to see if one of them is willing to, give you an offer you can commit to.
Yeah. All right. So we'll finish that there. We'll make some quick predictions. Womack, we both said we don't think ends up at Florida. Verona, we both do think ends up at Florida. Vodney, Cleveland, we do, but we're worried of Texas. Kent, we both end up thinks of Florida. McCoy, a bit more confident in, but also with Cleveland, Texas getting involved. Shari Charles, we both don't think he ends up here. Caden Hall, I do. Okay.
I think so. I'm like a little more hesitant on that one than you, but I probably would lean yes on him coming to the Gators.
CJ Hester, I'm like fully confident in, even with those visits. DQ Forkbutt, if a take, I'm 100% confident in. It's like the same with like the rest of these guys, basically. Karen Mike Maycock, if a take, probably. I mean, I don't know his relationship with FSU and Mike Norvell and stuff, but Tyson Bacon, again, like it's like the rest of these guys are. If a take, then yes, we'll just say that.
Yeah.
So we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 plus Carr. That's 8, and then you're probably going to end up taking at least one of these low-ranked offensive linemen in Tomasi and Lucas. 9, and then like if you miss on a prospect, to Maycock, Bacon, Brian Williams, maybe the edge, Corey Howard, maybe 10 players end up in this class from this visiting weekend.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not necessarily like the most star-studded. Like I think some of Florida's last couple recruiting weekends had like bigger names, but I think this was the one where Florida maybe had the highest like percentage of concentration of guys that are ultimately going to come here. And like also just guys that I think they feel they have a good shot with.
Yep. I mean, yeah, we got some pretty star-studded recruiting visits like the next couple of weeks, but less likely to land those guys. But yeah. So I think it's a successful recruiting weekend. Now things could end up tumbling out of control here, so you never know. But I think it's a pretty successful weekend.
Yeah, I mean, you'd like to have more than one commit ideally, but yeah, I mean, I think. I think it's good that like how stacked these weekends have been. They're having a lot of guys, and it seems like they're doing a good job of either moving up guys' lists or kind of maintaining their position there, from what we can tell on the outside. So
Yep. All right. So end that there. Okay. Earlier, a couple minutes, like 30 minutes ago or whatever it was, I said this is shocking to me.
Mm-hmm.
Steve Wiltfong just reported that Trenton Henderson, 4-star edge rusher out of Pensacola Catholic, 55 in On3 industry ranking. What's his composite? Or his composite?
I am pulling that up right now. He is 76 on the composite.
76. His top 80 player, 6'4", 225. Steve Wiltfong just reported that his top 2 schools are Florida and LSU. Which is very interesting because Auburn was like considered like the big favorite for a while here. I wasn't really considering Florida that much in it, but now that he says Florida and LSU are the top schools, that really intrigues me, especially with them saying Corey Howard, the unranked guy, isn't a take as of now. He visited LSU this weekend, so he hasn't committed, so that's a good sign.
Yeah.
He has listed visits for Michigan, USC, and FSU, and then he visits us on the 13th. If we really are a top 2 school there, that would be a really good edge prospect. I mean, this kind of came out of nowhere for me.
Yeah, and I think what's nice about this is it kind of feels like, to me, a lot of the guys that Florida's really battling for, like guys that they're either trying to make up ground or it's just like neck and neck. A lot of them, they're kind of getting the first word in with, but this is one where Florida's getting the last word, at least if you buy that it's a 2-team race right now. So the fact that, yeah, like you said, the fact that he had his visit to LSU this weekend and still hasn't committed anywhere is a good sign. And Florida's, I mean, he's going to USC after, so we'll see. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Florida's going to get in after LSU. And like I said, if that's really a 2-team race there, I think Florida's got a pretty good shot.
Yep. All right. So we'll do a little preview for next week's recruiting visits. Just quickly, 5-star receivers, Sedarian Morgan out of Alabama has a commitment date set for early July, I believe. Heavy Bama favorite. It would take a really, really big recruiting weekend from us to even get in that mix. Near 5-star edge rusher out of Orlando plays IMG, Jake Cruel. This is a big one for us. Visiting Oklahoma is the perceived favorite here, but I mean, a kid that grew up with Gator fans from Orlando, a lot of out-of-state visits. Like, he's treating this like a business, which I think is really good for us because that's how Billy treats it a lot. So I think we can really jump into this one and really make a splash here. 4-star edge rusher, another edge rusher here. Hezekiah Harris, Huntsville, Alabama, Auburn commit. From what I was told, Florida is really pushing for him. So we'll see what happens there. It's going to be tough to flip someone from Auburn. Another one, 4-star edge rusher out of Duncanville, Texas, Kevin Ford. This is one I was told a couple weeks ago. Florida's like a dark horse to land him. Now, with the news like Henderson and all these other edge rushers we're getting, we're going for after, we'll see what happens there. This is a big one for me. 4-star receiver out of St. Augustine, Samarian Wingo. This is a guy that's been on my board for like the past year as like our number 1 wide receiver. Like, he's only in the 100s, like 150s on the composite, I believe. So not the highest ranked guy, but I really like where we stand in it's a Florida-Miami battle. So we'll see what happens. 4-star corner out of Jacksonville, Mandarin, Brody Jennings. His dad actually recently passed away like yesterday or today. So rest in peace, his dad. But visiting Michigan commit currently. I know law schools are pushing to flip him. We'll see what happens there. 4-star defensive lineman, also out of IMG from New York, though. Preston Carey. Florida's recently turned it up, but again, it's kind of like with Tyson Bacon. If we're taking Cleveland and Stone and then McCoy, all these edge rushers, like, I don't know if there's room for him in this class. Another 4-star defensive lineman out of Alabama, Emmanuel Ruffin. Florida's in it. If we if we miss on a bunch of players, someone we could really push for, maybe lands. 4-star receiver out of Plant of Tampa, Florida. FSU commit Darian Williams recently got crystal ball to Florida. If he's a take, then I think we'll get him. Interesting here, 3-star offensive tackle out of Lakewood, St. Petersburg, Chancellor Campbell. His top 4 is Florida, Ohio State, Penn State, Miami. Someone that Corey Bender said he thinks he could really jump up, like top 200-ish player. I think he's a heavy Florida lean. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up committing. Interior offensive lineman Zeke Helton out of Carrollton, Georgia. Haven't heard much about him. Guess we'll see. Safety Jamarian Gordon out of Jackson, Alabama, recently named Florida's leader, but with Caden Hall, Braylon Womack, probably a later down the line take if he is a take. 3-star tight end, someone whose recruitments recently took up another notch. Lincoln Watkins out of Michigan, Port Huron, Michigan. Nebraska, Florida battle. I think if Florida wants him, he's a take. But again, another tight end, 3-star Kekua Amua from IMG Academy. Heavy Florida lean. If he's a take, he's in this class.
Yeah. Is that? Oh, sorry. Was that?
Yeah, that's it.
Is there more? Okay. No, I just say. Yeah, I mean, it's another good weekend. Like the. I mean, they're loading up these recruiting visits. Like, there's no doubt about it. I mean, I think, whether they close with all these guys that we feel pretty good about or not, I think the class only having three commits right now.
Yep.
Is it? Yeah. Like, class only had, I don't think that's going to last too much longer. I think we're going to see the class fill out pretty significantly in the next 2-3 weeks, month.
We could be making a video tomorrow morning for all we know.
Could be. Very well could be.
All right. Yeah, it's like there's a lot more top heavy prospects that we have a less chance of landing in this weekend. So if you're leading this weekend with 1 or 2 commits, like you're really happy with what happened there.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. With that being said, that's going to be it for tonight's show. We will be back next Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern, like usual. Again, reviewing an insane weekend of official visits. Hopefully, some more commits as well. We will. Yep. Oh, sorry, I forgot one player actually. He's listed June 7th for some reason. 4-star corner, top 100 player, Justice Fitzpatrick, Miami favorite here. Georgia actually, I heard is a favorite here. I think your big time corner is probably Chauncey Keenan that you're looking at here, and CJ Bronow, your 2 big time corners. So I don't know where he sits right now, but we'll see what happens. But there we go. Now that being said, we'll be back next Sunday, 7 p.m. EST again. Great weekend of visits. Hoping to get more commits. And as always, go Gators.